Big 12 Today with Ari and James. Monday through Friday, 8 a to 11 a Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
Off and rolling on a Friday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us. That is James Westling. I am Ari Tepkin. Great to have you with us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12. Tune in Big 12 Studios. We got a doozy for you today. This has been an athletic director week. We've had Jamie Pollard on the program, Brian Santiago, the athletic director at BYU. We're going to be joined by John Cunningham, the athletic director at Cincinnati, coming up on the show today, and Travis Goff, the athletic director for my alma mater, the Kansas Jayhawks, as well. So we'll round out the week with 4 different athletic directors. We'll have more next week. This has kind of been the time of the year to have the athletic directors on and kind of get caught up to speed. A lot to get to with each school, and then, of course, a lot to get to with them, not just specific to their schools, James, but with what's going on with the Big 12, with Monster Energy, and everything else.
Yeah, and I prepared for this opening segment to be a long, drawn-out monologue between you and I discussing the fact that we are officially in the month of August, and college football is here. And then I realized today's July 31st. Tomorrow will be the start of the official "we are in the college football season begins" month.
Did you not realize that July had 31 days?
It wasn't that. I just kind of lost track of where we were at in the week. It's a whole thing in my head.
But it does feel like July is surrounded by 30-day months. Isn't June 30 days?
Yeah.
Isn't August 30 days? August has 31?
Yeah, July and August are the 2 months of the year that have 31 back-to-back.
It's the knuckle exercise. That's how I learned it.
What is it?
January,
30
February,
days past
March,
September, April, June, and November.
See, that's the one I've heard, but that I didn't learn that one growing up. Mine was just you put your hands out, you count the knuckles. Where there's a divot, there's less
I'm
than
with James on that one.
31 days.
What?
Knuckle test.
Yeah. January's the big knuckle. February's the little divot. March is the big knuckle. April's the little divot. You go back and forth on your hand, and it tells you exactly how many days there are in each month.
But aren't there months with back-to-back?
Yeah, that's where you get to the pinky and you
just
bring it back.
July, August.
You run it back. Yeah, the Aztecs did it. That's where we got it. San Diego State shout out.
Oh, I think about like the actual Aztecs.
I'm sure they did too.
All right, a lot to get to today, but we got to start with, should this guy run for president? Curt Cignetti, the Indiana football coach, with a mic drop moment yesterday at Big Ten Media Days, especially with all of the back and forth, with all of the things we've been discussing from an SEC PR campaign standpoint, everything that ESPN has been doing to really prop up a conference that certainly needs to be propped up right now. Here's what Curt Cignetti said when taking the microphone at Big Ten Media Days yesterday.
The Big Ten is the best league in football. And a lot of really good football teams. It's hard to win on the road. Very physical football teams, very well coached. It definitely prepares you for the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. The numbers speak for themselves. We don't run a hype machine up here in the Midwest. We believe everything's earned, not given. And when we fall short, we say we fell short. We don't cry a river, whine, and complain. All right? And that's why we're the best.
Woo!
Thank you.
Yeah, seriously. He's the one guy that could say this and have it mean something, and yeah, thank you.
And I think that's what makes the comments so impressive is they came from the guy that just won the national championship, who spoke for all of America, college football nation, everybody outside of the SEC. That was extremely deliberate, targeted, very well thought out, and he nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
Which is exactly Curt Cignetti, right? Nailed it. Yeah.
Wins football games, plays a tough schedule, doesn't complain when things don't go his way, lets the numbers speak for themselves, was the line he used. The numbers look really good for the Big Ten compared to the SEC. It was just like you said, just the ultimate mic drop moment.
Yeah. So we'll see, what this means to the dialogue at large. I doubt it will mean anything, but it certainly is substantive in terms of just, calling it like it is, right? We've heard not just now, but over multiple years, belly aching, complaining. Alabama getting left out of the playoff a few years ago with 3 losses. Texas getting left out of the playoff last year, having lost, to Kentucky?
They beat Kentucky in overtime.
That's right. That was the overtime win. I keep forgetting that, but it feels like a loss, so I just keep bringing it up as a loss.
I'll tell you who it was, because that's another, and I was actually just thinking about this yesterday right after the show. So Texas keeps saying they got left out of the college football playoff because they played Ohio State week 1. You got left out of the college football playoff because you lost to a 4-8 Florida team.
That's right.
Mid-season. That's the L that kept you out of the playoff.
Oh, so if they beat Florida, they're probably in the playoff.
Absolutely they're in.
But what about the Ohio State game, though?
Don't lose to bad football teams and you play in the college football playoff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Texas, it's quite frankly, the Longhorns are known for complaining, so this didn't surprise me. Alabama probably too, to a degree, right? Like, it's like a birthright for them. Like, we're in the playoff. We're supposed to be. This is what we defined. We created this. Nick Saban ain't walking through that door. He is certainly part of the PR engine on ESPN, but he's not walking through that door to coach.
Even like the Texas A&M Texas comp. Texas beat Texas A&M, right, late in the year. That was their big signature win. But Texas A&M didn't have any bad losses on their resume. Texas A&M beat really good football teams all year long. Texas, even though they beat Texas A&M, and that's their stance, is that we beat them head-to-head, but Texas had bad losses. If Texas is qualified as a good football team, that's not a bad loss for Texas A&M. So, like, that's how I see the dynamic between those two programs.
Yeah. And, I think, like, I always subscribe to the belief that I'd rather be positive than negative about things, Like, it just serves better that way. And it's like, don't prove other people wrong, prove yourself right kind of thing. But in this case, because the PR machine matters a ton when it comes to, like, the playoff, as we've talked a ton about, it's important to point this out. It's important to talk about these kinds of things, because otherwise the dialogue is so loud in one direction that it is surfacing as the truth when it's not. You're not the best because you say you are. As Signetti just pointed out, the best is obvious. The best makes itself a point to be obvious.
And I think the importance of the narrative, perception, it matters more now than ever because of access and the explosion of social media and AI, and you can go down the list of just the advances in technology. Well, college football is a business, right? Maybe it's not the NFL, but it is still a ginormous money-making machine. And as a business, if you're a business owner or part of a board or whatever, CEO, CFO, whatever it may be, huge part of operating a successful business is having a strong marketing team, having a strong PR team. And college football has that, with our friends at ESPN promoting the SEC. And that's ultimately, to me, like what drives all of this for ESPN is it's part of the business side. And everybody else is pushing back on it. But also everybody else is trying to play the same game. Like the Big 12 is inking mega deals with Monster Energy. Teams are putting patches on their jerseys nationwide. Like, that's all the stuff outside of let's decide it on the field.
Well said. And I think it only enhances and shows the need for the Big 12 to find, a future exclusive partner. Because as ESPN is a partner, it doesn't feel like that from the PR campaign, PR machine standpoint. All I hear is denigrating the Big 12 from ESPN, a partner of the Big 12. Now, Fox is a little bit different, but they're not propping up the Big 12 in the same way they are the Big 10, maybe rightfully so, right? So the Big 12 is invested in TV partners that are invested much larger with other conferences that, to me, points to the importance of finding an exclusive partnership moving forward.
And I think we're inching towards that, right? I think that's we are playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers angle. There's 5 multimedia partners when it comes to men's basketball. There's the big 2 when it comes to football. It's ESPN and Fox. TNT is sub-packaged through ESPN. But we've seen what they're capable of with their team. So that is, I think, a door that opened that could potentially pay off big time long term. Because, like, personally, I wouldn't hate to see every Big 12 game on TBS or TNT or whatever True TV March Madness is on in the spring. But it puts the Big 12 in a really difficult position with ESPN because, like you said, you're part of the family, but the family has so much more invested in these other leagues.
They're eating a really nice meal in the main dining room, the family is, and they're like, yeah, Big 12, you go to the kids' table, and we'll serve you some chicken nuggets and some hot dogs.
And our hands are tied right now. There's nothing the Big 12 can do about that, but there will be in the future.
Yeah. Are you ready for some lawyers? It's a jurisprudence party! The Protect College Sports Act. A lot of talking. A lot of noise, whole lot of nothing. The latest on the Protect College Sports Act is, James, nothing?
Yeah, nothing.
So it looked like there was no chance for this to pass. The SEC and the Big Ten aren't going to approve it. Then, very swiftly and quickly and furiously, it came back to life. And there was a coin flip. Oh, maybe this will get passed. Maybe this will get through. They're working furiously. I've even seen, the president is demanding that this get passed. He needs to save college sports, was what I heard. Oh, would this bill save college sports? Would it ever? Well, the latest is nothing. So we went from not passing to maybe passing to not passing.
The way
Is that a fair assessment?
Very fair. Yeah, there's not really any major milestone updates other than the deadline has essentially passed, and the deadline is very much in danger of blowing this whole thing up. The way I look at this is the SEC and the Big Ten, they have spent months treating this like online shopping. They spent weeks and months filling up their cart. They're comparing options. They're reading all the reviews. They're tweaking every little detail because things are on sale. But then the sale expired. The clock has run out. And it's like they forgot to hit place order. And then they looked at their cart and they thought, you know what? We don't really need any of this. We already have all of this. And so the sale is time, and time is expiring.
Well, and far be it from me to give any credit anywhere, but it's interesting how, in some ways, the SEC and the Big Ten have made lawmakers sympathetic, which is a very difficult thing to do. Again, I've said this yesterday, placing the blame on the SEC and the Big Ten, I think, misses the big picture here. And as much as I would like to place blame on the Big Ten and the SEC, because certainly there is blame for them, I mean, ultimately, this bill was targeted at them specifically, initially. And when you do that, I think you kind of, off the bat, when you are creating a bill that is targeted towards you, well, you're going to get defensive. And as a private business operating within the machinery of the system, you're going to push back on that. I mean, the SEC and the Big Ten have all of the leverage here. Now, to a point, and, we've heard about this option C where they break away from the NCAA, and does that include other conferences? I mean, I maintain nobody wants to actually do that because of all of the mechanisms that would need to then transpire in order to do that. So, they have leverage to a point, but at some point, if somebody calls their bluff about, you're not going to leave because all of the event planning that the NCAA does is something you're not going to be doing yourselves.
Yeah, don't have the capacity. And I'm glad you brought up the Plan A, Plan B, Plan C framing.
Yeah, what was Plan B again? Plan A was the Protect College Sports Act.
And this comes from Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, who said this earlier this week, Tuesday at Media Days. So Plan B would be what he calls the next solution if the bill doesn't pass, and that is a compromise with other powered leagues on the College Sports Commission and rev share cap. We've been down this road. Plan C is self-governance. I'm just excited that 30 days from now the college football season will kick off and we don't have to talk about this stuff anymore. But, what's the timeline on a Plan B? Haven't we been going over Plan B since the rev share cap was even initially installed, or even the idea of having a cap? To me, it just continues to kick the can down the road in terms of actually finding a meaningful solution.
Yeah, you're right. And I would say Plan B is probably the most viable option here. But remember, that also takes lawyers. because any adjustments to the College Sports Commission as part of the House settlement need to be approved by Jeffrey Kessler and the judge, Claudia Wilkin, in this case. So, are you ready for some lawyers?
Plan B would require buy-in from a huge list of various parties, not just the leagues themselves, but then to your point, the House settlement plaintiffs' attorneys, Judge Wilkin, who you just noted. You've got a new league that's essentially formed in the Pac-12. Well, where are they in all this? The NCAA is going to want to have it's just going to be an absolute mess. And the thing that I think was encouraging about the Protect College Sports Act is you had somebody that was kind of buttoning this up, right, and presenting it to the leagues and to the sport itself. At least, to me, that's what it felt like. Maybe that wasn't the case internally, but it felt like from the outside looking in, okay, here's something that somebody else is packaging for everybody to look at.
All right, Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Last piece I wanted to get to here in this first segment is in relation to two players for Baylor, both trying to get the opportunity to become eligible to play. There is Hosea Wheeler, a guy that we've spent a lot of time talking about, who was granted a temporary restraining order from a McLennan County judge. At the same time, presumptive Baylor offensive lineman Yakiri Walker, who spent some time at Colorado. He's from DeSoto. He is also looking for that extra year of eligibility through the courts. And a two-time Baylor graduate judge denied his temporary restraining order, which, again, a temporary restraining order would allow Hosea Wheeler or Yakiri Walker in this case to participate in fall camp, to start playing in games until a resolution is reached on the injunction, which would then allow them to play for the entire season. So at this point, Hosea Wheeler is eligible to play for Baylor in fall camp and go through all the motions until his injunction is settled, whereas Yakiri Walker will not. So this does not end the season for him. There's an expedited court date for them to decide whether or not he can get this injunction. But two different results here. One good, one not as good.
And what are we calling these now? TROs?
Yep.
Got it. TRO, temporary restraining order. Not to be confused.
Come on, bro. Do you have a TRO?
A DHO or an SPS.
Yes.
Handoff or size per segment.
Yes.
What's interesting.
Or SPF, which I don't know what it means.
That would just be, I think, protection from the sun.
Sun protection F.
Some capacity. But what's interesting is not only the discrepancy between these two specific players trying to get eligible.
Sorry.
What is it actually?
Sun protection factor.
Factor meals, low-key, great deal. But at Oklahoma State, in Payne County, like hidden deep in the weeds, Iman Oates, who's one of their returning defensive ends and was one of their top linemen last year, his TRO was just granted. He's already on the roster page. He's expected to play week 1. So you've got 3 individual specific players with 3 completely different outcomes, 2 different programs. And that just speaks to, for lack of a better term, unevenness when it comes to eligibility.
Yeah. The inconsistencies, the difficulty. If Walker doesn't get to play this year, he's going to wonder why he didn't get the same judge that Hosea Wheeler got.
Right.
There seems to be a little bit of luck involved here, I guess, and maybe there's something deeper in terms of the rationale and reasoning behind the temporary restraining order and the injunction. But yeah, it's very much luck of the draw is what it appears to be. All right, it's Big 12 today. We've got a loaded show again. If you didn't hear Jamie Pollard yesterday, he was fantastic. This is his last year as the athletic director at Iowa State. And Pollard, we will replay the interview for you coming up in about 30 minutes from now. On the way next, sometimes we like to dive into Reddit and the college football subreddit, and sometimes we get really spicy and dive into the Big 12 subreddit. And this week, the Big 12 subreddit was identifying the most important conference game each week. We'll dive into that, see if they got it right, see where they got it wrong next. What is each week's most important conference game? That's next. This is Big 12 Today with James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. We are heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios and presented by Modelo. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, along with that good-looking man right there, James Westling. I am Ari Temkin on social at James Westling. You can get me at Ari Sports, A-R-I Sports. And I'd like to encourage you to check out the brand new Big 12 app. Scores, highlights, information, news, and us, Big 12 Radio as well. Great place to stream us and get all of your news and insights into the Big 12. Schedules, everything. The Big 12 app. Check it out. Download it today. And, of course, you can also listen to us. You can watch us as a part of Big 12 Studios on YouTube. Just search Big 12 Conference. You'll find us there. And you can join the chat via YouTube. It's where we have good communication with lots of listeners at the show or watchers at the show. Plus, you can check out all the other platforms. You can watch us on Tubi, Roku, Amazon Prime Video, many others. Just search big12studios.com and find all the platforms that you can watch us. Okay, so a lot of times, sometimes we like to dive into the college football or Big 12 subreddit, and when there's interesting stuff out there, it's fun to talk about, and I thought this one was a good exercise. Now, the title of this in the Big 12 subreddit is a little bit clunky, but I think it's also kind of notable. What looks, as of now, to be the most important conference football game every week this 2026 football season. What looks, as of now, to be the most important. So what are the most important games each Big 12 week? So only Big 12 versus Big 12 games.
Excluding non-conference.
Yes. And, of course, the caveat of – is it caveat or caveat?
Caveat.
Thank you. Caveat sounds a little bit too highfalutin. Like, you say caveat, it's like, whoa. It's July 31st, right? So ultimately things will change. Teams that we think are good might not be. Teams that we think are bad might not be, right? And so some of these games will change because what might look on July 31st like not a very good game will end up becoming a very good game. Mm-hmm. But let's just go through this. So no conference games week 1, and then there's one conference game week 2, which is Arizona at BYU. No other options on the board.
Yeah.
Week 3 has a few options. Be Houston at Texas Tech or Arizona State, Kansas at Wembley Stadium in London. I think it's obvious which one is the biggest, most important conference game that week. Arizona State at Kansas, obviously. Not Houston at Texas Tech.
No doubt.
Oh, wait, no, that's not true at all.
I mean, both are huge. I can't wait to watch both.
Yeah, but one's definitely bigger than the other. And that would be Houston at Texas Tech. That's a big one. And then week 4, we've got 5 games. Kansas State at Cincinnati. Utah at Iowa State. Colorado at Baylor. TCU at UCF. Oklahoma State at West Virginia. So the person who posted this on the Big 12 subreddit put Utah at Iowa State as the most important conference game week 4. Do you agree?
Strongly disagree.
Strongly.
Utah at Iowa State would be probably my 5th most important Big 12 conference game. No disrespect to Jimmy Rogers and Iowa State, and I understand that there's a lot of intrigue with that matchup because you have 2 first-year head coaches, even though you put Scally in air quotes because he's been on staff for 20 years. But the other contenders to me, Colorado at Baylor, is a fascinating game because the loser of that game, I think, drops out of the could this team be a Cinderella dark horse contender this year. The winner of that game gets a major shot in the arm. Kansas State at Cincinnati. That's the game that we both identified as K-State's trap game this season because it's sandwiched between another non-conference game. There's no buys kind of around there. That's a game that if K-State trips up, maybe their season looks a lot different in terms of games they would be favored in. And then even TCU at UCF, that's a huge test for Jaden Craig and Alonzo Barnett III, the new quarterbacks. And then the other game that I highlighted that might actually be my favorite is Oklahoma State at West Virginia.
See, this to me is the biggest game in week 4 because this is the game where it's like, is Oklahoma State for real?
Yep.
And for a lot of people that think that West Virginia could be, a better team than many expect, that's certainly where you are. It's a good opportunity here for you to prove it. I think this is the biggest game on the slate, considering it's one team that certainly people think could be factoring into the Big 12 title race, another team that in West Virginia that thinks a lot of people think could take a big jump.
And we know so much about these teams that we could do a deep dive preview of this matchup right now.
Yeah.
And there's a billion fascinating dynamics. West Virginia's been terrible at defending the pass the last 2 years. They've got a whole new secondary.
Great point.
Oklahoma State has the nation's leading passer from last season in Mestamaker. Oklahoma State couldn't stop the run last year. That's something that Eric Morris North Texas teams struggled with prior to last season where they were much better. West Virginia has the nation's leading rusher from last season in Cam Cook. So there's the built-in storylines, and that is a huge litmus test to your point for both programs. Is Oklahoma State for real? Can West Virginia finally turn a corner? If West Virginia is going to be a bowl team or a 7 or maybe even 8 win like breakthrough team, that's a game they have to have. And it's late September. It's only week 4. Shouldn't be any gnarly weather to worry about in Morgantown. It should be sunny skies in the 60s or 70s in Morgantown. So in terms of like just everything ramping up to that game, I'm getting pretty excited about it right now.
Yeah, that to me is unquestionably the biggest game of week 4. Week 5, here's the games. BYU at TCU. Texas Tech, Colorado, UCF at Houston, Cincinnati at Arizona, Baylor at Arizona State, and West Virginia at Iowa State. This one I think Big 12 Reddit got right. BYU at TCU is the big game this week.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, though, Baylor at Arizona State is a spicy game.
Yep, that would be number 2 on my list. Also, I have the tickets as low as prices right now, which is really interesting because it gives you a sense of who's selling their tickets. Texas Tech's home game against Sam Houston. They don't go by Sam Houston State anymore. Lowest ticket's $148.
Wow.
They're the only team over the century mark for any game right now, weeks 4 and 5.
Wow. How about that? Texas Tech fans are fired up for this season, for sure. All right, week 6. These are games October 9th through the 10th. Houston at Kansas State. Kansas at Utah. Iowa State at BYU. That's the Friday night game. Arizona at West Virginia, and UCF at Oklahoma State. Big 12 Reddit identified week 6 Houston at Kansas State as the big game. Do you agree?
I do. I don't see any other contenders. Maybe Arizona at West Virginia, depending upon what happened in the West Virginia-Oklahoma State game. But, again, we're only to week 6, and we're already talking about, well, if this happened in week 4 and 5, it changes the picture in week 6, which just kind of proves your point that that'll be the case.
Right. All right, week 7, this is games on October 17th, 6 games, all of them on Saturday. Oklahoma State at Houston is the game that the Big 12 Reddit identified. No, sorry, Arizona State at Texas Tech is the one they identified. But here's the other games. Oklahoma State at Houston, Utah at Colorado, TCU at Baylor, Cincinnati at West Virginia, and then there's, I think, a game in Kansas as well.
Kansas State.
Yeah.
The Sunflower Showdown. No, it's Arizona State, Texas Tech.
By the way, I've got Missouri fans already talking smack to me about Kansas, Missouri, and I'm like, listen, I'm more worried about 17 straight losses to Kansas State, okay? It's great with you and your Missouri stuff. That's great. Free state, slave state, get it. But, Kansas State's the one I'm most interested in. But that's not the biggest game of the week, is it?
No, I think it's Arizona State, Texas Tech. I mean, Arizona State beat Texas Tech last year. I think a lot of people have forgotten that Arizona State handed Texas Tech a regular season loss. It was in Tempe. This is the rematch, and this is the game.
Not Oklahoma State at Houston?
No, that one, I mean, again, we're getting to the point where it's like, what is Oklahoma State week 7? If they're undefeated, yes, that changes the picture drastically for the stakes that could be on the line in that matchup.
Just in terms of the information we have now, I think it's more likely that Oklahoma State is in the top 5 of the league at this point of the year than Arizona State would be. I feel like Arizona State could very well be a good team, and we have them in our consensus in the top 10 or top 8, right? Somewhere there.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's a chance things could go south, and Cutter Boley has a lot of interception issues, and they haven't solidified the quarterback position, and yada, yada, yada. And, I could see a path with the information we have today that Oklahoma State-Houston's the better game, but I guess today I'll buy it and agree with Big 12 Reddit. Week 8, October 24th, 8 games, full slate, no buys, all on Saturday. This is Houston at Utah. That's the one that Big 12 Reddit identified as the biggest game of the slate. Kansas State at Arizona State. Texas Tech at Cincinnati. BYU at UCF. West Virginia at TCU. Iowa State at Arizona. Baylor at Kansas, and Colorado at Oklahoma State.
I do agree. It's Houston at Utah. That's their pick.
Yeah.
Hard to have much of a rebuttal, at least as of now. Again, Houston could be walking into that game with 2 losses already because they will have played Texas Tech and they will have played Kansas State. Now, I think the assumption is they split those 2. But right now, those are not cupcakes by any means, right? So if Houston has 2 losses, that's almost kind of a make or break game for the Cougars if they want to be a top 3 team in the Big 12. Utah should be undefeated, and the early line on that one has Utah minus 6.5.
And remember, Houston is very top-heavy in their schedule. Like, their close is very easy relative to preseason expectations. So, yeah, this is the rough point where Houston has a lot of big games. Okay, week 9, these are the Halloween games, so games on Friday and Saturday. Halloween's on a Saturday this year. The game that Big 12 Reddit identified as the game of the week would be Arizona State at BYU. The other ones are Arizona at Texas Tech, Utah at Cincinnati, Kansas State at Colorado, Kansas at TCU, Oklahoma State at Iowa State, and Baylor at UCF. That's the Friday game.
Yeah, tough to disagree with Arizona State at BYU.
You can certainly make the case for Arizona at Texas Tech.
Yeah, that one too. But Arizona, again, they're a team that has a really difficult front-loaded schedule. They will have already played BYU. They will have had some really tricky road games. The Friday game's intriguing to me. Baylor at UCF. I think it's only the second Friday game that we will have had to this point. Wacky things happen in those Friday games. Remember when Houston went into Fort Worth and drubbed TCU 2 years ago? There were upsets like crazy last year on those Friday night games. That's at the Bounce House. It's the space game for UCF. Baylor, if they're a sleeper team, their schedule's pretty Baylor-friendly to start the year. So maybe they're in the top 25. I'm intrigued by that one too.
Week 10, this is November 6th and 7th. The November 6th Friday game is TCU at Arizona, which might be the best one. Now, the Holy War is on Saturday, a.k.a. BYU at Utah, whatever they're calling it now. So that's probably the answer here, but I think the Friday night game is pretty good with TCU at Arizona. The other games are Cincinnati-Houston, Oklahoma State at Kansas State, Colorado at Arizona State, West Virginia at Texas Tech, Iowa State at Baylor, and UCF at Kansas. This is a full slate with 8 games.
Yeah, and it's loaded, but to me it's BYU-Utah. BYU's won 3 in a row in the series. No team in that rivalry has won 4 straight since the early 80s. That one's going to be it's going to be electric.
And from the scheduling point of view, like, you did a great job. You get a really good Friday night game. TCU at Arizona should be really good. And then, yeah, you get the Saturday BYU at Utah game. Week 11, November 13th and 14th, another full slate with 8 games. The Friday game this week is
Houston at Colorado.
Houston at Colorado. The other the game, by the way, that Big 12 Reddit identified for Week 11 as the game of the week is the next game, which I was going to mention, Utah at Arizona. There's also Texas Tech at Oklahoma State, which is the answer for me.
Yep.
Baylor at BYU, Kansas State at TCU, Arizona State at UCF, Cincinnati at Iowa State, and Kansas at West Virginia.
It's Texas Tech at Oklahoma State.
And it may not even be close here.
Even if Oklahoma State's look like 5-4 or 6-5, whatever their record could be, around 500 at Oklahoma State in Stillwater, the fans are still going to be very invested because remember, if they're 6-5, that's 5 more wins than they had last year. And if they've won 4 or 5 Big 12 games, that's more wins than they've had combined the last 2 years.
And of course, Eric Morrison, his history with Texas Tech. There's a lot of history there, which will make it really interesting from a subplot. All right, week 12, November 20th and 21st. The Friday game is Iowa State at UCF. The game that Big 12 Reddit identified as the game of the week would be Utah at TCU. The other ones are BYU at Kansas, Houston at West Virginia, Arizona at Kansas State, Texas Tech at Baylor, Oklahoma State at Arizona State, Colorado at Cincinnati, and Iowa State at UCF. I think this one, Utah at TCU, makes sense, but I also think Texas Tech at Baylor could be very interesting, and then Arizona at Kansas State as well, are 2 other games this week that you could certainly identify as the games of the week this week.
This, to me, by this time of year, this is November 21st, the league is absolutely wheels off. Wheels off. It could be any of these matchups.
Yeah. And then the final week, week 13, November 26th through the 28th, 8 games, full slate, of course. Thursday, Thanksgiving game, TCU at Texas Tech. That's the one that Big 12 Reddit identified, and that's probably the winner here. Friday's West Virginia at Utah. That's the Black Friday game. And then the Saturday games are Cincinnati at BYU, Baylor at Houston, Kansas State at Iowa State, so a little Farmageddon, Kansas at Iowa State, at Oklahoma State, and UCF at Colorado. But yeah, TCU, Texas Tech's the answer here on Thanksgiving.
We get Big 12 football on Thanksgiving. That's it. Full stop. It's TCU, Texas Tech. I don't care if the line's 100 in that game. If TCU has struggled, Sonny Dykes just got that big contract extension. How do the TCU fans feel about him? And if TCU exceeds expectations, which I believe they will, then you're looking at a top 25 Thanksgiving matchup. Give me all of that.
The league plays only 14 conference games for the first 5 weeks, and then 45 through weeks 8, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Through weeks 6 through 13, they play 45 games with 8, 10, 11, 12, and 13 as full 8-game slates with no buys. So week 8 on is when we'll figure out who the Big 12 champion is going to be, or where the Big 12 who will be in the Big 12 championship game.
And that's what I like about the way this schedule's shaped up is there were too many buys in the past, and that's not a Big 12 thing. That's a college football problem. They condensed the calendar, which I'm a huge fan of because it gives us more Saturdays where everybody is playing, and you know how it's going to impact the league standings and the league race rather than guess.
Can't wait for football. Should be fun, and it starts in a month?
30 days.
30 days. All right. We got to get into this family business discussion when it comes to Kansas State, plus Deion and his new approach. On the way next, though, Jamie Pollard, the athletic director of Iowa State. He joins us. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio.
Still looking downfield, and it's intercepted. Intercepted. Trayden Stukes, first of all, made a great play to pick that one off.
Be successful. Picked up the blitz. Salter's in trouble. The game is really moving too fast for him right now. Stukes again comes through to get him on a loss of 2.
He's got time. His pass to the sideline is intercepted. Trayden Stukes with a purloined pigskin.
Robertson has to check it down. And again, Arizona is there to crunch it. Trayden Stukes leads the defense.
Johnson is hit, and he is dropped. Trayden Stukes was shot out of a cannon.
He's ready to pressure because the safety got him capped. And what's he do? Runs through the back and gets to Avery Johnson.
Sawyer Robertson looking for the lead. Intercepted instead. Trayden Stukes on his senior day.
Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, coming to you each and every weekday, 8A to 11A, right here on the channel, exclusively on TuneIn. You're watching us on Big 12 Studios. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. And this man already got his morning run in. Jamie Pollard is the athletic director at Iowa State. He joins us now on the show. And, Jamie, I almost called you Coach. Coach Jamie Pollard. You oversee everything Iowa State. Huge fan of just everything you've done the last 20-plus years. And you recently had a big announcement in terms of your retirement. So walk us through it, what led to the decision, and walk us through the next, 12 months or so.
Well, it's something my wife and I had just always talked about, that, at the point in time you transition to whatever that next is, that you want to do it while you're young and healthy enough that, you can go enjoy it. And I originally had kind of targeted I was going to do it at 60, which would have been 2 years ago. But our prior president, informed me she was going to retire. So we didn't think it was good for both of us to retire at the same time. So here I find myself 2 years later and just felt it was time to do it, and look forward to, being on the other side of the fence and being a fan.
As you've had some time to reflect in your career, you initially started as a CPA, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yep. Worked for Arthur Anderson and Company back in the late 80s.
So I guess, what went into that, and why were you like, this is just not for me? Kind of how'd you transition?
Well, it's a great question, Ari. I left college, went to work for Arthur Anderson in Milwaukee, and I'd been a student athlete. I was a cross-country track runner, and if I did it all over again, I would do the same thing. But what I quickly learned is it wasn't as enjoyable as I had envisioned it would be, and I missed the competitive part. And so I went back and talked to my college coach, who had become the athletics director at my alma mater, Wisconsin Oshkosh. And he said, have you ever thought about working in college athletics? And quite frankly, I never had. I knew what my coach did, but that was about it. I never realized all the administrative stuff. So bottom line is I got lucky. I got hired as a business manager at St. Louis University. And I was blessed to be able to work for Debbie Yao, and she grew me up really fast and mentored me and took me with her to the University of Maryland, and that just kind of started my career.
Jamie Pollard is the athletic director at Iowa State, and as you noted, Jamie, this time next year you'll be a fan. You'll get to sit back and enjoy these games from a fan perspective. So, in terms of your fandom, what would you like to see 2-3 years from now for the sport of college football?
Well, for the sport of college football, I hope that we can come to a mutual understanding that more is better and less is not better. We historically is over a long period of time, have been on this slow death march to kind of keep realigning. And, I said it when Oregon State and Washington State got left behind, that, that was not going to be the end. It was, kind of the beginning of this new era of it. And at the pace we're going, there's going to be more of that if there's not somebody who is either centrally in charge to kind of say what's good for the whole, or, we turn it over to Congress to tell us, and I get it. We don't like doing that, but we haven't been able to figure it out ourselves.
When you look at the way in which the role has changed of athletic director, how have you observed the changes? And then I also think you're in many ways, like, a big part of your background is in fundraising, and you did a tremendous job at Wisconsin in doing so, and then carried that over to Iowa State. But that seems to be the impetus for the types of athletic directors that are hired today, as opposed to maybe as importantly as it was when you were hired. So you're almost in some ways ahead of the curve that way, because now it feels like most athletic directors first and foremost have to be fundraisers. I'm just hoping you can comment on how you've seen that role evolve and change over the course of your time at Iowa State.
Well, I think what you find, Ari, is over time, we go through cycles of, what's the, magic pill, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what your background is. It comes back down to you have leadership skills, because the job is being a public leader, and there's going to be arrows coming at you all day long. And a lot of times when they hit you in the back, people like to also jiggle it around a little, and that's not going to go away, right? And quite frankly, with the onslaught of social media platforms, there's just many more ways for people to shoot the arrows at you.
Yeah.
But it's a public leadership position, and it's no different than being the president, being a senator, being a state representative. I mean, who even gets 50% of the vote anymore? You win the office by maybe getting 40%, and the other person gets 30%, and 30% of the people don't even show up. And so the job is a really challenging public leadership position. But whether you're a fundraiser, you're a CPA, you're an ops person, everybody's got their, in their kind of, arsenal, they've got their foundational education and skill set. But if you don't have leadership skills, you don't have a chance.
Jamie, if I was a young, up-and-coming athletic director, what advice would you give me about leadership?
Well, what I'd remind you is at the end of the day, it all comes back down to relationships. And the art of leadership is understanding the fact that it isn't about you, it's about all the people that are following you. And so figuring out, why do they follow you? And that's an art. But that's the best leaders know how to really motivate and excite their followers, because the definition of leadership is really about follows. I call it should be called fellowship, because you got to inspire people, and so a big part of that is communication skills, but you also have to be able to deliver. You can go talk to people and promise a whole bunch of good things, but they're going to start looking for results. And if you can't lead in a way that delivers results, you won't be in that position very long. But at the same time, if you're just result oriented, people don't understand what the mission is. They don't understand why you're doing that. And so you got to put those two together. And so I would tell people that, you've got to learn about relationships of people and figuring out how do you get people to trust you? How do you get people to follow you? And so much of that is just blocking and tackling communication and relationships.
Last segment we were talking about the backup quarterbacks, and as a coach, you have to sort of have contingency plans in mind. I liken it to athletic directors when it comes to coaches. Even though you want to believe that your coach in football will be there forever, you've got to have in the back of your mind that he won't. You've got to have a short list, and I would imagine that was the case for you and Matt Campbell, because Matt was introduced as Penn State's head coach the same day as you introduced Jimmy Rogers as head coach at Iowa State. So just take us through that. And was Jimmy on your radar for how long was Jimmy on your radar?
About 2 years prior. And, that you're right. I don't know if it's as, specific, the old sayings, people say, I've got in my desk drawer like 3 names. And I think that's probably overblown. To me, it's a constant exercise to just be aware of what is happening and who's up and coming, and not be so caught up in the flavor of the day. Whenever there's an opening, the media, for me, there's an AD opening now, right? And I noticed the Des Moines Register yesterday had a headline, who's going to replace Jamie? And I click on it, and, my 8-month-old new grandchild probably could have created that list, because there was no real research or thought to it, right? It was just paint the obvious. And as a leader, you got to be bigger than that. You got to be more thorough than that. In Jimmy's case, I'll give you a great example. And then, going back to James's question, is Jimmy's representative Thayer Evans had been on me for a long time to take part in a workshop he does every year for his clients. And, I just was like, one more thing I want to do in the summer, like go spend a weekend someplace. But I did it that year, and it was in Austin, and it was, your wives were included, and he had 10 of his clients. They were all either assistant or head coaches, and he had 10 combination of AD, presidents, search firms. And we spent a weekend in Austin at a hotel doing one-on-one interviews, doing group sessions. It was fascinating, right? And that's where I met Jimmy. Wow. And his wife Haley, and we spent a good part of that weekend together. And one of the things Jimmy said to me in my one-on-one with him was, help me understand, what do I need to do? And at that time he was the head coach at South Dakota State. He had just won a national championship. And he said, what do I need to do if Matt Campbell leaves, that I'd be the first person you'd call?
Wow.
And I'm not saying that's why he went to Washington State, but that was one of the steps I suggested he think about. And he did that. We stayed in contact with each other, and he was the first person I called.
That is an amazing backstory into Jimmy Rogers, who we are super excited to see what this season looks like. And then also, when it comes to like men's basketball, for lack of a better question, how are you able to retain TJ Otzelberger, who's just been incredible what he's done with that program?
Well, TJ and I got to know each other 19 years ago. He was one of Greg McDermott's first hires. He was basically the restricted earnings coach. He was a young kid from Wisconsin that was an assistant coach at Chipotle Junior College, and Greg asked me to meet with him to kind of, Greg wanted my blessing that I would let him hire somebody like that. And that began a long friendship between TJ and me, and a mentorship that, when Greg left to go to Creighton, when we had hired Fred asked me what's the first thing he should do, and I said we should convince TJ to stay as your lead assistant. And so Fred said, go get it done. And so, we convinced TJ to stay on Fred's staff, and then we did the same exact thing with Coach Prohm and convinced him to stay on with Steve Prohm. And then eventually we helped him, get his first job at South Dakota State as a head. And then, Desiree leaned into me to when she was considering hiring him at UNLV. And so, we stayed, we've got a relationship that's 18 years long. And quite frankly, that contributed a lot to him staying.
Yeah, relationships for sure, something I know that's important to you and a big reason for your success. Last thing I want to ask you is about this monster deal. There's been a lot made of it publicly, especially relative to the Ohio State and Notre Dame deals. We've talked a lot on this show about just the discrepancy between comparing those and how widespread the monster deal is for the Big 12. Just give us your vantage point of that monster deal.
Well, first of all, the people that are making that comparison don't even know what they're comparing,
right?
Because it's an apple and an orange.
Right.
What they need to do is look at KU. KU's got their patch that they've just announced and sold for a big number, but then they're also going to have a patch on the other side that's part of the Big 12 logo that they're getting $1 million for. And so these schools that are talking about, well, this school got this compared to $1 million. No, what I would say is that school got that, but they're not getting anything from their conference, right? So it's an apple and an orange. And, the devil will be in the detail on any school deal about all the other stuff you're giving that sponsor versus what I know we're either giving or not giving the Monster Energy deal. So the Monster Energy deal is basically just co-branding the Big 12 logo, and it's not taking up any inventory or space on our campus that the Big 12 didn't already have. They have their logo on the court, they have their logo on the field, and it's going to be a smaller Big 12 logo with the Monster Energy. So they're not taking up any bigger footprint, but we're getting $1 million for something that we were getting zero for. Not to mention, I go back to, and I've grown, Brett Yormark and I, personally, he and I have come a long ways. When he first started, I probably wasn't his biggest champion because I didn't think he understood college athletics. But I give Brett a ton of credit for listening and growing and trying And he's been a warrior for the Big 12, and I have a lot of respect for him pushing a ball up the hill. And he has stayed with us, and this deal is really him trying to help us. And, it's no different than what we talked about earlier. People are always going to throw arrows at you, shoot arrows at you. And, he's a public leader, and he's outspoken for, quote, the little guy, and people like to pick on those people. But I appreciate what he's done, and that kind of new age demographic of the 25 to 35-year-old, I always say the real art of leadership is being willing to make decisions that the ultimate results of those decisions won't happen on your watch. Because make decisions that'll change generations, right? And so Brett's making a lot of decisions in that younger demographic age group, the WWE, all the things he tries to do. And those results, if they're going to be positive, will probably manifest themselves 10, 15, 20 years down the road, that he might not even be the leader to enjoy that.
Well, the word warrior is the perfect word to define both of you guys and all of your accomplishments and just the way you guys think. All right, walk us through Jamie Pollard, Iowa State AD. August of 2027, are you still checking the athletic fund from your phone on a beach chair? Are you bored out of your mind? I mean, you ADs, you guys are wired to be busy.
You know what? I've kind of approached it and go, I'm pretty confident. I've yet to find one person that have told me you won't like retirement. And I'm not getting too caught up in like specifically what I'm going to do. I know like what our cadence is going to be. We have a place in Arizona. I plan to spend the winters in Arizona. We have a place at the lake that I'll spend my summers here in Iowa. My wife and I are going to buy a suite for our kids and our family for the football games. So I plan to still go to Cyclone football. Probably won't get to as much basketball because I'll be in Arizona. But, plan to go to the Big 12 tournament and go to any postseason. My son is one of the coaches. Yeah. I got another son that coaches at Northern Iowa. So if we're not there, we'll be watching it on TV. So August of 27, I'll probably be at the lake getting ready for the start of football season and looking to support Coach Rogers all I can.
I'm pretty sure I just heard Ari say, "Take me with you." So sounds fantastic. Jamie, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much
You're the best.
for your time.
Congrats.
Well, thank you for what you guys do to help promote our league. We really do appreciate it. And, just thank you. Thank you. This might be the last time I'm ever on this show, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're the best.
Appreciate you.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Jamie. Iowa State Athletic Director Jamie Pollard joining us here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. Coming up next hour, we dive into some Big 12 Football Media Day recaps, highlighting two schools. Today we touch on Texas Tech and BYU, and then Brian Santiago, the AD at BYU, will be joining us here in about a half hour. He's Ari, I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio. We are brought to you by Modelo.
Last time they played, Johnson throwing the ball, and it's tipped up and intercepted on the deflection. What a pick! Xavier Alford came in from nowhere and picked it clean after the pass was broken up. Second and 3. Play action. Morton knocked away. Looking for the tight end Conyers. It was Alford who got a hand on the football.
This ball is actually well thrown, right? Between high point of that ball, that's just a great defensive play by Alford.
Quick snap. McLeod taking a shot at the receiver, and it's intercepted. Xavier Alford. Turnover, Sun Devils.
Johnson pretended like he was going to run. Now he'll throw middle, and it's knocked away incomplete. Brown was open, and it just took a long time for that ball to get there. Alford knocked it away. To give a lot of credit to Xavier Alford coming from the free safety position. To the end zone, it is batted away. He was looking for Gunnar
Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. We are presented by Modelo. James Wesley, Ari Temkin. Wyatt Wheeler from the Topeka Capital Journal wrote a great piece on Bill Snyder's perspective on Colin Klein returning to Manhattan. And the thesis of the piece is that Kansas State is a family business. And so, basically talks about how Snyder, attended the opening press conference, was there at Bramlage when they formally introduced him to the fans. They showed a video of the 2012 season that was Colin Klein's finest, and Snyder was there to observe it all. And it's like, here's the man who built the program watching the kid he built it around take the job he held for 27 years. There's a lot of parallels and synergies there. And for people that are new Big 12 fans, we'll say, maybe you don't know as much about Bill Snyder or Kansas State or Colin Klein, but these are, Snyder, especially legends of the game, right? We're not just talking about a great coach in Kansas State history. We're talking about a great coach in college sports history.
And the timing of Colin Klein becoming the head coach at Kansas State for where he was at in his career couldn't have lined up any better. And what Bill Snyder did during his run at Kansas State, there's a reason why they call him the architect of the greatest turnaround in college football history. Because Kansas State was so down when he got that job, they were really close to just completely eliminating the football program entirely. And the bond between those two and the backstory between Colin Klein and Bill Snyder did not recruit Colin Klein. Colin Klein was a 3-star athlete who played quarterback in high school in the Denver, Colorado area, and he was recruited by Ron Prince. So Bill Snyder inherited Colin Klein and right away saw the leadership, the work ethic, all of the intangibles that helped him, I guess, identify the fact that he was going to be a star.
Yeah, he was a wide receiver at first, right? In 2009, he was a wide receiver. He played special teams. He caught 6 passes for 38 yards. He moved to quarterback in 2010. He started and beat Texas 39-14 in November of 2010. He ran for 127 yards and 2 scores and completed 2 of 4 passes. But that was the moment, right? Like, when you think about one of the most improbable stories in rises, like, this is it, Colin Klein. And you forget about it, right? Because we remember 2011 and 2012. He was a Heisman finalist in 12, let them do a Big 12 championship. He had that really disappointing game against Baylor, but bounces back to beat Texas. And so, I mean, like, the story is really incredible. And I think sometimes you kind of forget about it because you see the finished product and the end result of, like, wow, here's a legendary quarterback. But, like, the path to get there, it's one of the most improbable stories in college football.
And the parallel that I see in today's game, I would look at Drew Mestemaker, the quarterback at Oklahoma State, who walked on at North Texas, did not start at quarterback for his high school team. He's the only other kind of rags to riches rise I can find. Colin Klein, similar situation. He didn't walk on at Kansas State, but he wore a different jersey number. He played a different position. He ultimately got moved to quarterback because Kansas State had so many injuries. They didn't have a lot of other options at that time. And that Texas game you referenced, which I was at, by the way, it was incredible because, and you had his stats, 2 for 4 passing. Kansas State basically didn't throw any passes, and when they did, they were screen plays or little checkdowns. He had a really weird throwing motion that just wasn't going to work, but it evolved over time to the point where he ends up being a Heisman finalist, and then he goes on to enter the coaching ranks as a GA under Bill Snyder in 2014 and 2015. He leaves to become the quarterback's coach at Northern Iowa for a season. This is way back in 2016. And I think at that point, people didn't even realize that Colin Klein had entered the coaching world because he's at an FCS school. Then he comes back to Manhattan, and he's the quarterback's coach from 2017 to 2023. And that's where you saw him tutor Will Howard, who's now in the NFL. Spent 1 year with Avery Johnson. The one season he had with Adrian Martinez was by far Adrian Martinez's best year. So then he goes, he's the offensive coordinator for 1 season. K-State breaks a bunch of records, goes to Texas A&M, now he's the head coach. Like, his kind of stair-step rise in the industry has shown a track record of success everywhere he's been, but there hasn't been this massive leap until now.
Was he the OC during the Big 12 championship season?
He was the OC, yes,
22?
in 2022.
Yeah.
Which the Big 12 championship game was 2022 for the 2023 TCU appearance in the college football playoff.
Bill Snyder's quote, he's a great learner. He always has been and is attempting to learn. Even today, he is still seeking out opportunities to become better and learn more about his trade. I've always felt, and this is a very telling quote from Snyder, that the smartest people in the world, the ones who know the things they don't know, which, you meet people that you can just tell, like, they think they know everything, and they're the smartest people in every room they walk into, and they hold themselves like that. I think it's the other ones, the constant learners. I mean, what can you teach Colin Klein? Well, look at how much he's learned over the course of his life. Those are the best leaders, and those are the best, in my opinion, people. He was much more than a quarterback. Snyder said how he cared for others and the quality of the individual he was at all times helped him grow in his different leadership roles. Klein would ask Snyder for leadership opportunities rather than waiting for them to come. Quote, he was good at taking responsibility. If something would go wrong, he would accept accountability for it, whether it was in his lap or not. James, as a K-State alum, can you remind listeners and people that are watching us right now about Bill Snyder's famed 16 goals for success?
Yeah, so Bill Snyder, and this was his second tenure at Kansas State. The first tenure ended in a 4-7 campaign, right? So he retires. Well, then things went horribly wrong with Ron Prince. And Bill Snyder was the guy that was advocating for Ron Prince to get the job and be his replacement. And so it almost felt like Bill Snyder owed it to Kansas State to get the program back on the right track, which is why he came back. And in that second stint, he installed the 16 goals of Kansas State football. And over time, we learned about what the 16 goals were: commitment, toughness, leadership, expectations. He had a really detailed blueprint that every single player on the football team had to abide by. And it was a big reason why K-State nearly played in a national championship during his second stint. It's just remarkable that he did it 2 different times. I mean, Kansas State hadn't even made a bowl game when he came back for the Bill Snyder 2.0 era under Ron Prince. They were horrible. So he had to turn around a program, same school, 2 different times. Nobody's ever done anything like that before.
Well, and I think what's really cool about this and what it illustrates is that here comes Colin Klein proving that what Snyder built was never like the wishbone adjacent option game or the 215 wins or the 98 team that went unbeaten in the regular season. It was a method for producing people, and the real proof of whether or not it worked is through Colin Klein.
And Colin Klein is somewhat reserved and quiet by nature. You're not going to have a Kurt Signetti soundbite or a Mike Gundy rant soundbite from Colin Klein ever as a head coach. But he's a tremendous leader just in terms of the way he carries himself. He's incredibly intelligent. And then to your point about just the fit, I think we see that at other Big 12 schools. Morgan Scalley, everything that program has embodied for 20 years, 30 years under Kyle Whittingham. Jay Hill leaves for BYU. They promote from within with Kelly Papinga. There are a lot of promotions in this league that kind of embody what this is at Kansas State. It feels, even though he's coming from Texas A&M, like it's a almost promotion from within the program.
Yeah, and Snyder gets to watch and observe as the receiver he converted, a quarterback he coached, a graduate assistant he hired, a coordinator he mentored, take the microphone as the head coach at Kansas State. That's really cool. He is, and Snyder's quotes show this, Colin Klein is the best embodiment of the 16 goals for success for Kansas State football. That's what's really cool, and even this Jayhawk can see that.
It is, and Chris Kleiman was not shy about acknowledging what Bill Snyder meant to the program, and the same thing for Colin Klein. Colin Klein is in no way, shape, or form steered away from, I was mentored under Bill Snyder, and that's who I kind of model my coaching style after. And sometimes I think guys are afraid or have too big of an ego to admit that they're like somebody else. But Colin Klein's not that way. He's not afraid to say, yeah, I'm a lot like Coach Snyder. I'm going to have my own wrinkle, but all those those principles, those core values are very much the same.
That's James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. All right, coming up, we've got John Cunningham, the athletic director at Cincinnati. Still to come, Travis Goff. On the way next, it's Brett Yormark. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo.
Juju cash it in. Instead of tackling the loss as Jamori Robinson flashes. You see right there that burst from the former American Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Year.
The last break. Well done by you. But it really is an alignment process, and it's not even a fake punt ball.
Second down, here's Whitman on a play fake. And pressure's coming. He got away from the first, but not the second. Set down by Corey McIntyre to bring up third down. Explosive runs. Their quarterback involved. Fumble! Six appeared to pounce on it as he coughed it up at the mesh point. Brent Perry, number 5 for West Virginia, up in the box. L.J. Martin involves freshman. Corey Robinson brings him down. Robinson was the defensive player of the year for the American Conference last year for UTSA.
Big 12 Media Days is the site presented by Monster Energy here at the Ford Center, Star in Frisco. Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12, is joining us here on Big 12 Radio and Big 12 Studios. How are you, Commish?
Doing great. Thank you for both being here. It's a great day. I can't believe we're embarking soon on another college football season for the Big 12, but I'm excited.
When is there not a busy time for you? Like, I feel like, people in work, whatever they do, whatever industry they're in, it's like there's always a busy time, then there's like a little bit of downtime. It feels like the summer should be the downtime for you.
It should be, but it hasn't been because, when you think about it, so in the early part of June, we have our spring business meetings, and that's a big undertaking.
Yes.
Obviously, you guys were there. On the heels of that, we have year-end meetings with the CCA and the CFP, and we were in Colorado for almost a week. Then you're coming back to Dallas and making sure you're getting this event right, okay? Now, I would say when I look at the calendar, the next 2 weeks through the end of July, pretty sane, okay? But our eyes are on the fall, and you're getting ready, if you will. But things are relatively sane. And then when you get back to August, you're gearing up for the beginning of the football season, and we start engaging with, key stakeholder meetings, board meetings, and AD meetings, just setting the tone for the next academic year. So I would say later this month is a time where you can exhale a little bit. Now, I will tell you that I am going to take a little vacation towards the end of August and then end up at our game in Dublin. So I'll do a little
European vacation.
Vacation, then
awesome,
and then end up in Dublin, and then the season starts.
Oh, that's the way to do it.
Will you be going to London too in a few weeks after that for Arizona State?
Interesting enough, on my way to my European trip, I'm going to stop in London for 2 days, and then meet with the press on August 18th, getting ready for the big game at Wembley.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Checking all the boxes.
Trying to mix a little business with pleasure.
You were at the podium earlier. We were here. Coaches at the podium, coaches here. I missed the big announcement about the partnership with Monster Energy. I get online. I see it everywhere. This sounds huge for the Big 12.
It's a big deal for us. When I first got here, I wasn't sure if the Big 12 had the right brand equity. And, I had flirted with possibly renaming the conference and integrating a bit of a commercial element. But then I realized that given the hard work of the staff at the conference office, our board, our ADs, we've developed a real positive narrative around the Big 12. And I often say it, there hasn't been a better time than right now to be part of this conference. So why jeopardize that? Why compromise that? So the next thing I thought about was, how about if we do some naming rights for different sports and take conference-controlled inventory that's never been monetized before and figure out what we can do with it. And that's what we did. And I'm thrilled about the Monster partnership. Monster Energy, checks a lot of boxes for us. Great brand alignment when you think about the drive and edge and ambition of their brand and our brand and our student athletes. You think about the global nature of their business. They're sold in 159 countries. So think about where they can take us. They do a lot of retail activation, and they plan on taking us to retail, not just the conference, but the conference office, but other elements, of the conference in our schools. There's a lot of things they're going to do for us to elevate and amplify who we are and where we're going. So it's a great partnership from that perspective. Obviously, the economics matter, but it's really more about when you partner with someone at this level, what can they do for your business and brand? And I think they can do a lot.
One of the things that I really admire about your leadership is the way that you're able to get consensus. That we see a lot of infighting amongst conferences across the country. When the Big 12 makes an announcement, everybody's behind it. There's no athletic directors or presidents that come out, disagreement with it, right? Like putting the Sorsby piece to the side for a second, like you get consensus on everything, even the Sorsby piece.
I try, and it's not easy.
No, it's not easy.
I will tell you that based on where I came from, managing to a 16-member board and obviously the influence of the ADs is something relatively new for me. And I've adjusted, and it's probably taken me a little time to get there, but building consensus is critically important. when you have multiple stakeholders, at the table. And I think over the last 2 years, alongside my ADs and my presidents, we have worked on cohesion and making sure that we all share in the same mission and vision. And I'd say right now, we're where we need to be.
What are the latest, I guess, updates? Because it feels like with all the college football big picture stuff, with the eligibility stuff that just got passed, and the Sorsby stuff, and the Protect College Sports Act, where are we at on the college football playoff and the Big 12's position? And just kind of, is there any movement? When do those discussions kind of get kick-started again in terms of where that lands?
I think I know we had meaningful conversations in Colorado. And I would say we kick-started them in Colorado last month. And I think they'll continue when we come together later in the summer.
Okay.
And, for me, and I said this earlier, I do like the element of access, greater access, and 24 delivers that. Having said that, the economics matter. What does the marketplace think about going to 24? What does that schedule look like? The economics, obviously a priority, the scheduling, and then what are the unintended consequences? What are the things we should be thinking about that we're not? That could play a role moving forward. So we started vetting those things out in Colorado, and I think we'll continue to do that through this summer. And I think by early fall, we'll have a sense for directionally where we need to put in more time in an effort to ultimately get to a decision.
I remember when we talked with you about this, I think it was before the spring meetings, you kind of mentioned basically like, we've got to model this out and make sure that the revenue is there and you're not in it to be made whole. You want to exceed your revenue, which makes sense, right? Is that possible because the championship game is such an important event. We talked to Scott Draper about it. Is it possible to generate greater revenue without a championship game?
Well, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. We'll see what the marketplace is for a 24-team format. And, we have our own external team and resource that we rely on to do some of that modeling for us. And so far, based on what I've seen, it pencils out pretty positively. But we're certainly not going backwards.
Right.
And as Scott said earlier, and he's right, our football championship serves as a huge tentpole event for us from a brand perspective. I mean, last year, you guys were there. We had 85,000 plus. Our ratings were up 39%. It ultimately was just a big moment for the Big 12. And I don't want to give that up without knowing what I'm trading for. Because effectively, it's a trade.
Yes.
You know what you have, and you want to figure out, is there an opportunity to get something that benefits the conference in a greater way? And that's what we're working on now.
When it comes to, like we were talking with Scott Draper earlier, and the some of the best experiences I've ever had as a fan was watching college football in person, being in the stadium on weeknights. I love it. The championship game will kind of be back and forth between Fridays and Saturdays. What are the benefits of not just that game, but also having these games during the regular season on Fridays or even another night, down the road in the future?
Well, I tell you, there's lots of different decisions that go into that, okay? And I'll just be very candid and transparent. I've said this before. We need to find clear air for some of our games. And we need to be flexible in what days of the week we play. Now, as part of the new TV deal we have with ESPN and Fox, and last year was the first of a 6-year deal, they have the ability to move 12 games, 6 and 6, off of Saturday, okay? We need to take full advantage of that.
Yeah.
And as I said last year, our Friday night games rated 64% better than the average rating for the season.
Wow.
Okay. Because there's clear air.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have to explore that across the board, and look at new and different ways to create value. I said it today. I'm in the value creation business. And one of the ways we can create value alongside our TV partners is to innovate and look to create new windows where they're afforded to us. And the move to Friday night has been terrific. If there's other windows that make sense for us, don't compromise, student athletes, certainly don't compromise the fans, then we got to be willing to do it as first movers and innovators.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm a Kansas alum. Arizona State, Kansas, in the middle of the Big 12 schedule on a Saturday. Okay. Arizona State, Kansas in Wembley Stadium early season. Like, those are two completely different dynamics. Like, you're going to do without even looking at the numbers, you're going to do a much better rating with the situation, with that game the way it is, as opposed to week 8 or week 9 of the Big 12 schedule on a Saturday, at 11 a.m. with 17 other games at the same time.
Listen, one thing I love about college sports, specifically college football, is that we're in the big event business. And we have to think about how do we create the biggest moments and the biggest events that we can. And taking two teams, to your point, and moving it off campus to an iconic venue in Wembley and packaging it up a little differently makes it into a big event. Now, Fox Big Noon Kickoff goes there. Okay, first time they've ever gone international, and they're going to amplify that all week long.
Yeah.
So to your point, it's how do you make the necessary adjustments to look and feel bigger and to create value?
The one thing that I wanted to ask you, it's a frustration of mine as we try to really, raise the profile and voice of the Big 12. How do we get 2 playoff teams? It just feels like, there's BYU in particular. Like, I understand they lost Texas Tech twice last year, but it feels like they had a considerably better resume. The last 2 years, they're getting credit nationally for. How do we get the Big 12 out of this, what seems like treadmill of the same conversations over and over again that isn't, to me, jive with reality of the situation in terms of how good the league is?
We got to be better. I mean, I said that today. We just got to be better. We haven't won a game in the 12-team format last 2 years.
But it's not unfair. It is what it is. But it's only one game a year. We're getting judged on one game a year.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. But that's why we need to continue to compete at the highest level, so we have multiple teams in the playoffs. So all your equity isn't just in one school and one game, and we need to do better, and hopefully we will. And when I look at our the conference upcoming, and obviously we have 4 new coaches and there's been a lot of change on our rosters, I'm very optimistic, and I think we have a chance here, and I'm very hopeful that we can continue at the highest levels and not only get one team in, but 2 teams in, and also win some games.
Yeah, I'm just curious from your perspective, because last year was better than the year before, right? Arizona State was like a 12 seed. They took Texas to the wire. That was great. But then Texas Tech getting a bye. This year, does it look better to get multiple teams in, or just to win a game in the college football playoff if it's just one team?
I'm
just running through scenarios.
For me,
we want both.
Yeah, no, listen, we want a volume of teams in, and we want to win games. But I think for us, to make the necessary progress we need to make, I want to win a game.
Yeah,
I want to win a game, because if we have 2 in and we don't win,
then it looks even worse.
The narrative hasn't changed much.
Right.
So I want to win.
Yeah, let's get it.
Brett Yormark, Commissioner of the Big 12, joining us here
guys.
from 2026 Monster Energy Big 12 Media Days at the Star in Frisco on Big 12 Studios and Big 12 Radio.
Thank you both, guys.
Shoulder fade. Was that caught? It was! Caleb Douglas. Look at what he found. Fourth the other way. Pass corralled by Douglas. A first down and another big play. There goes Douglas. Inside the 25. He's been a big play machine. A gain of 43 more.
Final 30 seconds of the quarter. Second down throw to the end zone. Douglas. Touchdown, Texas Tech. What a
Another missed tackle, and Douglas is free inside the 20 and inside the 15.
14 touches, almost 90 yards. Back shoulder fade. Was that caught? It was! Caleb Douglas. Look at what he found.
Baron Morton wants another touchdown for the road, and he's got it for Douglas, who finds his own camera on a touchdown.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Is that me? No. Okay.
It's Taman.
Got it. It's Taman. I was hearing an echo, that's why. Now we don't hear it anymore. Fantastic. John Cunningham, the athletic director at Cincinnati, is joining us here on Big 12 Radio, along with James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. How are you, John?
I'm doing well, guys. Good to be with you this morning.
Yeah, appreciate your time. I will say, we're spending time visiting with administrators across the conference. It's probably a really good time to be an athletic director that's also a lawyer.
I went to law school, graduated, got my bar in Texas, and then never practiced. And I specifically didn't want to be around lawyers every day, and now that's all I do. So I somehow managed to get right back to where maybe I was trying to avoid. But I know just enough to get myself into trouble. But we have some really great lawyers that are helping us through this, and it's every day trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah, I mean, just reading tweets from Ross Dellinger on the daily about the Protect College Sports Act, I feel like I need a law degree just to talk about it and just to ingest some of it. I mean, what's your vantage point of what's been going on with the Protect College Sports Act?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. You have to kind of go back to civics class to remember how a bill becomes a law and remember sort of how it works. And so it's been very interesting. You know, it's been a long journey, to be honest with you. I mean, I've been to DC now, I think 3 times, and I know a lot of ADs have been a lot more than I have. But you know, you're going there and you're trying to, you know, make a case that we really need some assistance. We need some structure. Everybody knows we need some structure. You know, what does that look like? How do we get to a place, you know, in the near future that we all understand the game that we're playing? And then we can, as an institution, decide what level we want to play within the parameters that we have. And that's, I think, the ultimate goal. But, you know, the transfer rules are going to be really important to get those in check. And then also, obviously, sort of you know, what does the cap look like? How extensive is that cap? You know, what is it, a hard cap? Is it a soft cap? You know, can we put some parameters around that as well? So I think personally you start with the transfer side first, and then you go to the money side, and then you can get to a really good spot eventually. We're trying to change this thing. You know, we operated one way for 120 years, and we're trying to change this thing really in 2 or 3 years. And so it's going to be a little rocky. I think everybody has to understand that. We all have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable for a little while. But the product itself, as you guys know, you cover it every day, is too good to fail. And it's never been more popular. And so we will, promise you, we will get to a point where we figure this thing out and we operate with some rules.
Yeah, John, when you say, you know, things are going to be a little bit rocky for a while, what is the, you know, what does for a little while mean to you? What do you think is realistic in terms of getting things figured out?
Well, you know, I'm still very much hopeful that the Saving College Sports Act gets through the Senate and then gets through the House, and that creates some stability there through that process. I mean, I think we really truly believe as a conference in a congressional help in this case. So we believe in that model. If it's not that, then maybe we're back to the drawing board. You know, and trying to operate within the next 6 months or so to figure out what, you know, I think the next marker for us, honestly, is what does the portal look like in January for football? And I think that we have to, as an industry, you know, get our heads around like trying to get some parameters in place by that time. So in terms of timing, I think that's the next marker. But again, it's gonna even then we're gonna do something, and we're gonna have to adjust it, and we're gonna have to change it a couple times before it really, I think, levels out. Hopefully in the next couple of years.
John, how have you evaluated your football team over the last couple of years, and what are the expectations for this season?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody, you evaluate, you know, from the start. You evaluate on wins and losses. I mean, that's the name of the game. So we certainly do that. But you know, we entered into the Big 12 with a new coach. We entered into the Big 12 without a football facility at all. In terms of an indoor, we were building one at the time we entered into the Big 12, and so you know those first 2 years we're practicing in Nippert. We're practicing in Nippert in Cincinnati in November, and there's no, you know, we're probably one of the only schools in the country that didn't have an indoor opportunity during that time. So there were just some challenges, you know, as we started, and Coach Satterfield takes over in this brand new world of NIL, and so we're trying to build that up at the same time. So certainly, in my view, he deserves a lot of credit for building us up. 3 wins, 5 wins, 7 wins. We went 5-4 in the Big 12 last year. Our marker is always, you know, it starts really with the Big 12. Can we compete and win in the Big 12, and can we get to Dallas for the Big 12 championship? That's our goal every year. And so that will be the goal again this year. And I'm excited about what we bring back. I think we're one of the strongest offensive lines in the country. And we have 3 starters there, probably 3 NFL guys. And then we fit in with 2 guys that played a lot. So across the front on offense, we're going to be really good. I like what we've done in the transfer portal. I like the changes that we've made on defense with the new defensive coordinator. So I'm very hopeful and excited about the year, and I like what I see behind the scenes.
John, when it comes to basketball, like if the NCAA had expanded during Wes Miller's tenure, Cincinnati's probably a tournament team at least 2 or 3 of his 5 seasons. You hire Utah State's Jared Calhoun, Huggins guy, UC alum, just a perfect fit. why the change, and what excites you most about what Calhoun's already done in terms of building a very impressive roster for year one?
Yeah, it's tough. It wasn't an easy decision. I mean, we were good, but we weren't good enough to make the tournament in the 5 years under Coach Miller. And at Cincinnati, the expectation is that you make the NCAA tournament. That's who we are, and that's what we believe in. And so, made the difficult decision to make a change, and went out and found the guy, in my mind, that fits us perfectly. I mean, he was not only the hottest coach in the country, in my mind, coming with what he's done at Utah State, and even before that at Youngstown State, which is one of the most difficult jobs in the country. So had a great pedigree there. But he's also has ties to Cincinnati. He was on the Huggins staff when Bob Huggins was here doing great things. And so he has those ties. But really it was about, who he is as a person. As you get to know him, he's such a confident individual, but has a humility about him at the same time. And he's just a worker. And that always plays in Cincinnati. He's tough. He's tough-minded, and he's a worker. And I think, that's what people are looking for out of a Cincinnati basketball team. We're going to be gritty. We're going to grind. He's about defense. He's about a unique style of offense that kind of flows and scores a lot of points. So I think everybody around here is really excited. He had to go build a brand new team, completely brand new. Every single one of our players outside of one walk-on is new. But I think we did a really nice job in the portal to build a really nice team.
Yeah. How do you figure out how to allocate funds across your athletic department?
Challenging. I mean, I think, and obviously everything got more challenging with NIL coming into play. Right. And so I think, it's like oxygen. It's the most important thing in the room is having some money. You got to have it. And then you got to figure out where it goes and who it goes to. And so I think, for me, it's a lot of conversations with my trusted staff here. I've got great individuals here that have been with me for a while. Maggie McKinley is our SWA, and she's right there. And John Daniels, our CFO, and Brad Pike oversees basketball. And so, honestly, it's kind of a group of four that sit in a room and talk about what we need to do as a department. And then I present it to the president and say, this is my plan of attack. This is where I think we can take advantage of the resources that we have. We've got to always operate a little bit above our resources. That just is going to be who we are. And so we understand that as well. But it's tricky to figure out because there's never enough. But we want to make sure that we're healthy in football, healthy in men's and women's basketball, volleyball, baseball, and then compete really well in the Olympic sports. That's kind of the way we approach it.
Talking Cincinnati today with their AD, John Cunningham, here on Big 12 Today. And I think that sometimes on the surface, people forget that the Big 12 is still very new in terms of the members that are in this conference. So with that full Big 12 revenue that kicks in, what does that do for a school like Cincinnati and just your future outlook?
Yeah, so we started the first 2 years in the Big 12. I should have mentioned that when I was talking about Coach Satterfield, taking over. We started the first 2 years as a half-share institution. So we had $18 million the first year, $19 million the second year, but now we're part of the full share, and it's made a huge difference. And luckily, it came at the exact right time, which is exactly when revenue share kicked in, is when we became a full share school. So to be honest with you, the full share went directly to covering us being a full revenue share institution. And that was really important to us and our president to make sure that we could compete that way. So, that's where the dollars have been spent. And again, it couldn't have come at a better time. So it was crucial.
There's been a lot of noise around the monster deal with the Big 12. Just give us your perspective on it.
It's exciting. It goes right along with who Brett Yormark is, which is he's gonna be innovative. And he was great with the athletic directors and the presidents throughout this process and letting us know, hey, here are some options. This is what we could do if we want to do it. And I think he did a really nice job bringing Monster to the table. And it makes a lot of sense for us to be kind of first mover in this area and use our mark to combine with the great brand of Monster. It connects with the younger demographic, which I think we all really, really like. And it's about us. It's about being innovative, about being a little bit different. And I think it's a great deal. So we're all excited about it here and ready to jump in with Monster.
John, speaking of younger demographic, I would like to add that Cincinnati just has an awesome apparel look. You guys have some serious swag. How much credit should go to John Cunningham for the Nike, the Jordan deal, and just how awesome all these uniforms are that you're churning out happen to be?
Well, credit goes to others because we were at a point in time, we were coming off of we had a great relationship with Under Armour for a while, and we were just at a point in time where we had to find what the next iteration was going to be for us. And to be honest with you, it kind of started with a conversation around basketball, which was we were one of the original Jordan Brand schools. Mm-hmm. People, remember that or don't remember that, but we were one of the original. And so to go back to them, and we actually have an alum named Jamal Lucas that works for Jordan Brand. And so he was critical and pivotal to bringing that together. And so we were able to get Jordan Brand talking to us, and then we got Nike on board to cover our other programs. So we're Jordan Brand in basketball, Nike and everything else. And then honestly, the brand itself is just it's a great mark. It's always been a great mark. It's the best colors that I've ever been a part of. My wife loves the fact that we're black, red, and white rather than some of the other colors I've been a part of. I've been in 6 different schools. So it's great to wear. It's great to wear black and white and red and have the Jordan Brand. It's fantastic. And the Nike brand, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And you grew up in Lincoln, right?
I did. That's my hometown. Yeah.
Yeah. And did I read that growing up, your dad had season tickets to basketball, but you didn't really go to football games?
Yeah, I don't know how that got. Yeah, yes, that's true. I don't. We go to maybe one football game a year and go to some volleyball games, but we were diehard Nebraska basketball fans. That's what I remember most about growing up.
That's a rough deal.
It was until this past year. They made the Sweet 16, and he got season tickets in 1972. So you can do the math on whatever that is, and had never seen an NCAA tournament win out of his team. So I would put him in the category of Cleveland Browns fans and some other. Got Zach Stipe next to me. He's a big Cleveland Browns fan, so he may argue with me. But they were in that zone for a long time. But I'm really happy for them that they cracked the code, and happy for my dad that he got to see it happen.
Yeah,
guys,
I'm sure Zach won't argue with you on that one, by the way. There's not much of an argument. Go ahead.
Danny Nee and Eric Piakowski would like to have a word. Okay.
No, trust me. Those are my guys.
Yeah.
I went to camp and I was coached by Tyronn Lue. How about that? He was the coach of my team at Nebraska basketball camp. But Eric Piakowski, a guy named Eric Strickland was really good. They had great players. Honestly, they were always kind of right there. They were a 5th seed one year, and they just couldn't ever get that win in the NCAA tournament. So they had a really good run this year, though.
It's just amazing to think, you're in Lincoln and the, Cornhuskers are winning like national championships in football and going undefeated, and your dad's like, nope, basketball.
That was just it. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's incredible. John Cunningham, Cincinnati Athletic Director, really excited about Jared Calhoun. Can't wait to see his team this year, and really excited to see what happens with football as well. Take care and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Always fun, guys. Thank you, guys. Take care.
John Cunningham, the Athletic Director for Cincinnati, joining us here. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. Still to come, Travis Goff will join us as we make our way through talking with many administrators and athletic directors across the Big 12. On the way next, though, Joy McGuire. We'll hear from him and what he had to say, and a great quote from James Blanchard on recruiting. It's all on the way next. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Play fake. Sorsby taking a shot. Touchdown, Cincinnati. Irie connecting for a touchdown. Sorsby hits Cyrus Allen for the second time today.
And again, his confidence is growing.
Hart always said to commit to his
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. The Big 12 Friday Power Hours. DJ Lagway, Kylan Reed, Alonzo Barnett, Jaden Bellamy, Julian Lewis, Danny Scudero, 1 o'clock. There's your Power Hour for 1. Then 2 o'clock. This is 2 o'clock Central. Today on TuneIn and Big 12 Radio, Kyson Brown, Lyric Rawls, Bryce Pollock, Terrence Carter, Drew Mestamaker, Caleb Hawkins. And then 3 o'clock, it's Bear Bachmeyer, Isaiah Glasker, Scott Satterfield, and Lance Leipold. Heavy hitters. Some of the best players in the conference. Drew Mestamaker, Caleb Hawkins, Bear Bachmeyer, DJ Lagway, Kyson Brown, Lyric Rawls. You can hear all of them throughout the Power Hours we have for you on a Friday. Remember, the show is live 7 to 10 a.m. Central each and every weekday morning. Then it replays until 1, and then you get your Power Hours.
Does the Big 12, and this is a question for the room, when it comes to the postseason awards, there's a first team All Big 12, there's a second team All Big 12. Is there a third team All Big 12, or does it jump then to honorable mention?
I think honorable mention. I think it's just first and second team.
I think you're right. So in our first Power Hour, I predict there will be one first or second team All Big 12 guy from that list.
DJ Lagway, Kylan Reed, Alonzo Barnett, Jaden Bellamy, Julian Lewis, Danny Scudero.
And if I were to pick
Jaden Bellamy,
I would go Bellamy. DJ Lagway's actually the one that wouldn't surprise me to see him be at least honorable mention. Maybe.
No, I love it. It's a bold prediction on Friday.
It's bold. It's bold. We do bold on Fridays.
I was going to say the second Power Hour definitely has some All Big 12 performers. Bold take. Terrence Carter, Lyric Rawls, Bryce Pollock, Drew Mestamaker, Caleb Hawkins. Hello.
Over half of those guys will
probably
be All Big 12. Definitely the running backs. And then
good call on that first crop. That's a good call there. There's some surprise potential there. I think so.
Very much so.
It's kind of like which of these teams will be surprises at quarterback: Lagway, Alonzo Barnett, or Julian Lewis.
Mm-hmm. And Lewis, I see Julian Lewis having a monster year, statistically. I feel really good about his upside. The go-go offense under Marion. Having Scudero, a reliable, incredible route runner he has a knack for getting open. So he's going to be his, I don't have to think, I could just throw it in his direction guy, which elevates their offense. My concern with Colorado is what else they have. The offensive line, the overhaul on defense. Remember, they couldn't score, and they also couldn't stop anybody.
It's a bad combination.
There were a lot of bad problems.
Bad combination. Really bad when you can't score, and even worse when you can't stop anybody.
And then their schedule. So this could be a 4, 5, 6, I think at best 7-win football team, but Julian Lewis could have 10-win football team caliber numbers.
Quickly, power rank these quarterbacks for me. Julian Lewis, Alonzo Barnett, DJ Lagway.
Lagway, Lewis, Barnett. That's how I would rank them. I think when the season's over, not necessarily right now, Barnett certainly has a higher resume, pedigree than Julian Lewis, but I think when the season's done, that would be my order.
Yeah, I would agree. I certainly think from a preseason expectation standpoint, but I've been very high in Colorado throughout this offseason. To me, it goes back to the complete opposite of what last year was, which was a horrible pairing of quarterback and offensive coordinator. Now you've got the ideal pairing of quarterback and offensive coordinator. It was a really good hire by Dion. It was the perfect guy in the right spot, I think, in Brennan Marion. And more to the point, Lewis is one part of it, but this running game needs to take off. Full stop. Mm-hmm. Colorado's run game has been non-existent since Dion showed up.
It's been bad. I mean, they can't run and they can't stop the run. Now, what I like about what Colorado has done is it's been a complete overhaul. Schematically, roster, outside of guys like Julian Lewis, who were high school recruits for this Colorado team. And so Dion has really kind of reset the deck for this year. So they would definitely be a top 3. I can't wait to see how this season goes for them, school in the Big 12 for me.
All right, Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio presented by Modelo. Adam Brenneman has been releasing clips of interviews he's done with some Big 12 administrators. He's been very heavy Big 12. He's had Ren Baker on his show. He's had Joey McGuire and James Blanchard. And this is clip 1. Let's start with Ren Baker. Here's what the athletic director at West Virginia, Ren Baker, says is the hardest part about being an AD?
Most people have no idea. It's not just hanging out in locker rooms and going to practice. I have free tickets, free lodging, free airfare, per diem to every Final Four and every CFP game that I want to go to. And I've not been in 6 years. There's just so much other stuff to the job. I got 2 girls at home, a wife at home that, you miss so much. I think in an average year, I do about 250 events a year between games and other appearances, and so you miss so much. By the time I get to that time of year, I just want to spend a weekend at home with my family if that's available. I've not regretted choosing this path because I do believe that college athletics is one of the great teachers of leadership in the United States. And it's not lost on me that I get a front row seat to watch student athletes develop those skills through athletics and what comes with it.
Really cool insight there as Adam Brenneman was sort of asking Ren Baker about getting into sports business. And look, there's give and take, right? Like if you ascend to the highest level within Ren Baker's sphere, then there's monetary rewards for the job, but that doesn't mean the job is any easier. In fact, it's harder, tons of pressure, and as he said, not as much time as you'd like with your kids.
Love the light piano backdrop that we had as a music bed there.
So it's part of the Adam Brenneman conversation, but yeah, it added some elements to it that made it a little bit more pulling at your heartstrings.
Yeah, this is deep level emotional stuff, guys, and I love that. Because we don't get that in sports. Like Ren Baker traveling 250 days out of a 365-day calendar sheds a much different light on the pressure, everything that's at stake, and the sacrifices that these guys make being in this position. We see them on the surface in a position of power. They have everything they could ever want. There are a ton of sacrifices. And so that was really cool to me. And I will never complain again about traveling 150 days out of the year. When I hear 250, that's insane.
Yeah. Joey McGuire, as part of the Adam Brenneman podcast, talked a lot about football. Here's clip 3 in what he looks for in a quarterback.
I've always looked at the quarterback position from whenever I was at Cedar Hill all the way through as like, they don't have to be a dual threat, but they can't be a statue. I'm looking for a guy, one, that loves football. This is hard, man. It's a full-time job. Yeah. I do want somebody that can extend the play, somebody that craves that learning and wants to know why. You do try to find a guy that has the it factor that really like people gravitate to. They're all about the team. They have a personality that people want to play for, that people want to be around.
Yeah, and I love the end of that answer, James, because I think more than the physical attributes, it's the leadership tendencies, the fact, like, if people want to be around you, like, that's a good thing. If you have a magnetism about you personality-wise, that it's not exactly every quarterback, but certainly it helps.
And we talked about this earlier this week with Texas Tech and the type of player and athlete and family that they bring into their program. They're incredibly likable. You can't have a bunch of teammates that don't like each other. And they do a tremendous job of identifying that chemistry and that culture before those guys even step on campus. It's a huge part of their success.
Yeah, here's what Joey McGuire said about not letting one game define their season.
And you're consistently being consistent coming in the building every day. There was a point we got beat by a place that you were at, Arizona State this year, and that was our first loss of the season. And when we came in on the Sunday meeting, I said, guys, I just want you to know you've been at places to where after a loss, it's like the sky's falling and every coach is feeling all this pressure and they're acting different to you. We're going to be the exact same way today, and we're going to be the exact same way tomorrow. We're going to figure it out together how to fix it and make sure it doesn't happen again. But it's not going to be this roller coaster. Every person in this building is here for you. The most important thing we have in this building is a player, and they're here for you.
Really cool stuff. The highs and lows of winning and losing. Joey McGuire wants to have a level, not too high, not too low. We are consistent each and every day in the way we approach our job, because that's what playing college football is. We don't like that term. We don't talk about being an employee. It is a job. It is a full-time job. And if you have that consistent, like, these are just tremendous examples of leadership all across the board.
Yeah, here's Joey on his biggest recruiting priority at Texas Tech.
Because of the world we live in, you better have great relationships with your current team because they can't enter the portal. You know, so I wanted our coaches to take their relationships to another level. I wanted them to really focus on developing our current team. I think one thing in my mind, at one point, there were a couple players that I evaluated that I really wanted to recruit, and it got to the coordinator. The coordinator didn't like them. I was really like, okay, this is a broken system. And then, why am I even watching film if it gets to the coordinator and it never gets to this group? Why am I focusing on that? Let me focus on the team that we have. All the coordinators, the position coaches, they watch it. Blanche will create a list, and this is when they're watching it. If that group thinks that this kid should be offered, then they're going to call the head coach of the high school, and then they're going to call the player and offer them, or the player's going to call them.
Yeah, I think we talk so much about external recruiting. The internal recruiting is so huge, right? Because, I mean, think about Texas Tech in particular. Players they lost went to the NFL draft, right? Like, they're not losing players to the portal. Now, it helps to have money, but that's not the only reason.
And I love the fact that he identified a broken system. At the top, it was the head coach, Joey McGuire, saying, I like X, Y, and Z players. Then he passes it down the food chain for feedback, and it's a unnecessary step. You start from the bottom with the position coaches and then the coordinator, and if it gets through those two tiers of vetting these guys, it makes Joey McGuire's job a lot easier, and it allows him to focus on other things like the retention piece that he noted.
Here is James Blanchard, of course, the Texas Tech GM, on this topic.
I was on the phone with one parent, and their son had got in the portal. And, man, he's a good young player, freshman. He doesn't have an agent, mom. So, like, what are you thinking? She was like, we're thinking $2.5 million a year. It's hard for me sometimes to tell these parents they're stupid. Yeah, I said, that sounds about right. Yeah, I'll call you back in a couple of minutes. Let me go talk to our coaches about it. I hung up the phone. I'm never calling her back again. They have no clue. Man, that's everybody's fault because people aren't educated on the matter. And she's probably seeing a headline on Twitter, and everybody thinks their baby is the greatest in the world. I always ask, hey, am I talking to their parent or am I talking to their representative? Because if I'm talking to their parent, then man, that's very different than talking to their representative. If I'm talking to you as their representative, I'm gonna give you some real stuff or whatever. We're gonna have a real conversation. And that's hard for parents to hear because all they've seen since he was 5 years old is he's been the best in his city. They've never known him to fail at anything.
Man, that's great. Really insightful. And yeah, I mean, it's hard for parents to have a realistic viewpoint of their kid. And I think for Blanchard, all right, like you're on the phone with somebody, and they're like, he's gonna for $2.5 million, and you're like, you have no idea what you're talking about. But he didn't blow them up, right? It's more of like they're just a product of this system right now that they don't have an understanding of it, and it's, of course, their kid. They're going to protect their kid.
And for Texas Tech, it's a hard pass. And the parallel that I see is the way Kelvin Sampson recruits at Houston, and the way Texas Tech football recruits. And I think vetting the families and the parents and getting them involved in a positive way is kind of that extra layer. And I'm not sure how many other programs in the league or in the entire country start there. These guys start there. They read body language. They talk to the parents. They get the backstory. It's just kind of that extra deep dive layer that I do think there are programs that maybe don't overlook that, or maybe they still go through that process, but it's not important enough to change their opinion on a guy who's 6'4", 210, and runs a 4.3 and can catch passes.
Right, and there's so much around the money factor with Texas Tech, and as we've talked a lot about, like, they're barely top 10 in spending when it comes to college football at large, but yet they're the team that everybody talks about when it comes to money. Nobody's bringing up Ohio State that's spending way more than them, or Texas or Alabama that's spending, Georgia that's spending way more, LSU that's spending way more than them. It's not even a factor in discussions around those teams. For Texas Tech, it's like, well, they have a lot of money and they're spending it. What about LSU? Spending $7.5 million on Sam Levitt. Are you kidding me?
The most direct, like, this is how one program's doing things, and on the other end of the spectrum is how another program is doing things, that comes to mind for me is Texas Tech talking about vetting the parents, the agents, and then Texas, who on recruiting visits has a row of Lambos and Ferraris for players to see. Right? Like,
right.
That's the, hey, look at how much money we have, come here angle versus, yeah, we have money, but we want to get to know you as a person first. Completely different.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. All right, Travis Goff will join us coming up. On the way next, though, we've been talking about it throughout this week. We got to get into Deion's new approach in recruiting and in the portal. That's next. This is Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio.
Up to the field side here. And he's home again. Changing up the look. The result is the same for David Bailey.
56% on the year on conversions. Jackson's in trouble and down. David Bailey, he is a sack machine.
More on 3rd and 8. Pressure and they get to him. He is sacked by the best in the biz, David Bailey. 14 and a half sacks now on the season. On this possession, but a huge smack in the backfield again. It's David Bailey walloping Jamarian Burnett.
Work on an empty here. 3rd down and 9. Kansas State. Oh, goodness. Look out. David Bailey, the sack leader in the nation, gets home again.
Cam Pickett is much healthier now and running better. You see it there.
Oh, good night. David Bailey in a heartbeat. He graduated from Stanford in under 4 years, and he runs like this.
This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, visiting with the athletic director at Kansas, Travis Goff, coming up in 20 minutes. Deion's new approach. Deion's trying out something new, James. James Westling, Ari Temkin. It's called recruiting. Apparently it's this new thing. A lot of teams are doing it. Deion's decided, you know what? I'm going to do it too. I've decided. After, what is this, year 4 for Deion in Colorado?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's getting in on this new thing. It's called recruiting.
Pretty important aspect of operating a program, I would say.
Yeah, Deion is never fully committed to recruiting. When he first came to Colorado, he said, a big reason he wasn't going to do in-home visits was because he's too big of a deal, and it would cause too much stir. And so because of that, recruits will come to him. I mean, it hasn't really worked. Even with the wins, those have become losses. You think about Jordan Seaton. You think about the 5-star safety or corner they signed that never really amounted to much. Like, they've had some high-level players commit to Colorado. They haven't been able to keep those guys to stay. And so Deion's now saying, like, yeah, I'm going to make recruiting, high school recruiting, a more significant part of what I'm doing. And I think it's obvious based on what he's already gotten in his 2027 class. Now, the 2026 class may be the worst of all of them in terms of, the volume of players, 1, and then 2, the amount of 4 and 5 stars. But 2027 is shaking up to be a really good class. It is also going to be, from an early commitment standpoint, the highest volume class he's ever had by far. Deion in 2026, Colorado's class is 14 out of 16 in the Big 12. Not good. He has signed 43 high school recruits in his first 3 classes. Only 21 of those 43 are still in Colorado's roster at the end of the 25 season. That's basically half. And how many of those are now gone since the 25 season ended? Jordan Seaton's one of them.
And I would say of those half that are gone, they're the 4-star and the 5-star guys that had really high accolades. The philosophy, I think, is more on brand for Colorado. The old model was to chase the star power, the 4 stars, the 5 stars, the guys that were 4 or 5 stars out of high school but didn't see the field as much as they thought they were going to at their previous stop. Over 60 new players with the new model, which is now leaning into experience and leadership versus that blue chip star pedigree and rating. And they brought 6 players to Big 12 Media Days. One of them was a former walk-on, and he's a captain, and he doesn't see the field a bunch. I think he's a long snapper. I'll look that up here in a minute. But he was quoted in this piece as, we brought in a bunch of guys that are mad and hungry because they weren't recruited out of high school. Totally different approach from bringing in guys that have been told since they were 8 years old that they're going to be the next Peyton Manning,
right,
or Orlando Pace or Warren Sapp.
Right.
And I think that version of Colorado's recruiting philosophy fits them better. Their transfer portal class is still a top 20 class. It's ranked 18th in the country, but it looks a lot different. You've got guys like Scudero, who wasn't recruited by anybody out of high school, so he goes to San Jose State. He's only about 5'7", 5'8", but he leads the nation in receiving yards. He's as hungry as it gets. Those are more the type of players that this roster this season is full of versus the Jordan Seatons or the DJ McKinneys or the guys that were these 5-star prospects out of high school.
Yeah, it's as if he showed up and said, we're bringing Louis with us, and then realized, after Shadur and Travis Hunter were gone, that maybe you shouldn't be going after the Louis Vuitton luggage as much as you thought you should have.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is. Right? Danny Scudero is not Louis Vuitton. Right? He's a smaller piece of luggage that maybe doesn't have the branding on it, and that's not a knock on Scudero. It's sort of a reality check for Deion. Their recruiting class, his first one, had 17 players in it. In 24, it was 12 players. That was the worst recruiting class in the Big 12, 16th out of 16. In They had 15 recruit commitments in 2025, which was 13th in the Big 12, and then 14th in this year's class, which is 15th. 67th nationally. 20 already committed for 2027, including 5 4-stars. So message loud and clear. In fact, Deion mentioned at media days, it was a conscious change. I wanted to look at every kid and know what I want. We changed how we targeted the kids. That's another quote. The mentality over ratings riff. Recruits inflated by someone that's maybe not qualified, handing out stars, arriving with attitudes that won't work with me, end quote. So he's learned. He's learned, he's improved from what he's learned in his first few years on the job.
And Colorado has only been to 3 bowls in the last 18 years. This is a program that was very down prior to his arrival. Sure, we remember those Rashawn Salam teams of the early 90s and Cordell Stewart and just how dominant they were back then, but that's a different era. And with what he's done this season, I would say under Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, those guys made up for a lot of other huge holes within that system. There's a reason why Colorado lost by 3 touchdowns against Kansas late in the year and then got blown out in their bowl game by BYU. Remember, that team was like 8-1, and then they really slid. And it was to the point where depth played a role, and teams realized Shedeur and Travis can get theirs, but we're going to shut down everything else. And last year with those guys gone, I don't think we realized just how much they were making up for with their talent and their athletic ability. And then bringing in Marion kind of fits like the same bill of this isn't a huge name, but this is a guy that was overlooked, kind of underrated, runs this gimmicky system that I think a lot of other programs were probably afraid to install. And it's been successful, though, everywhere he's been. So I love this new approach, and it is completely different from what we saw his first 3 years.
Look, Deion is a legend. He's got an insane-sized ego, and rightfully so. Normally, guys with those kinds of egos that are always told how great they are don't change or evolve. They're stubborn because they're only told that what they're doing is the right way. And I think it's clear that Deion has at least some reasonable voices that are telling him, you got to change. That or it's coming from internal. And I think that's the biggest takeaway here is, like, yeah, I mean, we could have all predicted that this would have been the outcome. Like, yeah, you're saying you're not going to do in-house visits, you're not going to recruit. Clearly the proof is in the pudding. So the ability to change and adapt is not lost on Deion. And we're seeing that not just through the recruiting or the transfer portal, whatever else. It's in how he hires, right? I mean, he had a really bad OC situation last year, and that's not a knock on the OC. It's just rather a knock on the decision to hire him and retain him. So you change that and rectify that with the perfect type of OC to fix this system. I think as much as we look at Deion and think some of the things he says are foolish or wrong or whatever, and as much as he's a lightning rod, you got to give him credit for at least understanding that he needed to change in a big and meaningful way.
And what in his life could have possibly led to that reframing of the mind? The guy had cancer. I mean, he spent 3 months completely away from the program as he battled bladder cancer, and he had a bunch of surgeries. The guy's had over 20 surgeries throughout his life. Last year's Big 12 Media Days, he's down 15 pounds. He is visibly thinner, and I think that context matters and has played a role in kind of this new outlook, not just on life, but on the program as a whole. I see both of those things tied together, and I love this new approach from Deion. And the schedule's brutal, and maybe it doesn't translate to 7 or 8 wins in year one of this new era of Colorado football, but he's bought in long term. He has a ginormous contract. He's not going anywhere, at least as of now. And so this could work for Colorado. And then those like big guys that are the 4 and the 5 stars that you could argue peak in high school. Julian Lewis doesn't fit that bill to me because he was a late up-and-comer. Like, he's not a kid that at the age of 12 and 13 was a 5-star, right, and already being recruited by Ohio State and USC. He's a kid that reclassified because of this late emergence as a passer. So I think he fits with everything else.
All right, Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Pete Nakos, our friend from On3, tweeting out an hour ago, sources have told On3 that conversations remain ongoing on the Protect College Sports Act. quote, the Senate is going to work until next Friday so we can still get it in, end quote. Good luck with that.
So we've got one more week, essentially.
Uno mas.
Maybe there's a chance. I mean, in my mind, I had kind of put the deadline at today. The deadline keeps getting pushed further and further down the road, which is kind of how these things go. But maybe that is, I guess, the optimistic outlook would be, it gives us 5 more days.
Yeah, I'm assuming, like, Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti are, like, off to the side, like, seriously? Like, can't you just let this lie?
Right.
Just kind of, like, can't you just treat this like you do most other things?
Like,
where you just
let it go.
Yeah. Can't you just treat this like you do most other things, which is just let it play out for a long period of time before you actually take action? Like, the Senators here are committed to it. Far more committed to it than it appears the conference commissioners are.
I mean, when you have multiple scheduled meetings and calls between commissioners and conference presidents get canceled, that tells me it's not a super high priority, or at least at the level priority-wise that it is for everybody else. Like, that was a huge glaring moment for me. Why are these calls just getting canceled?
The Protect College Sports Act is flawed. We've talked a lot about it. It certainly has some good pieces to it, but it is flawed. And the changes that have been made, at the request of the SEC and the Big Ten, don't appear to be enough, at least from where we sit today. Do they completely change the bill to completely satiate the SEC and the Big Ten? And then at that point, what do they say? That's the interesting part. Right? I mean, they've kowtowed to those two conferences after as an overcorrection, right? Because they alienated them at first. Basically, were like, you're the problem. This bill is focused on you. And they're like, what? Huh? No, we're good. We've got senators across 25 states that are going to say no to this, so good luck.
No problems here.
Yeah, right.
We're doing fine. Pro Football Focus, I know you're a huge fan, just put out 8 teams most likely to make their first college football playoff. How many of the 8 do you think are Big 12 schools?
1.
To make their first college football playoff.
2. BYU and Houston.
There's 3.
Utah.
The other one. 3 of the 8 are Big 12 schools. BYU's number 2 on their list. Utah's number 6. Houston's number 7.
Do you think if BYU loses to Notre Dame and doesn't win a Big 12 championship, they could still get in if they win all their other games?
All right, if they lose to Notre Dame.
And let's say they lose to Texas Tech again in the Big 12 championship.
If they win all of their other games and they're 10-2, right now I lean no. Because that would put them with a similar resume that they've had the last 2 seasons. And they still did not get in. Now, they're going to have a much higher strength of schedule this year because of playing Notre Dame. That's a huge plus and bonus. But I also think it'll decide how that Notre Dame goes. Do you lose by 3 touchdowns at home, or is that a game that's anybody's ball game with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter? Because we saw that have an impact this year when it came to Texas A&M, when it came to Miami. Both of those teams had non-conference losses, but they were really close games, like 42-40, games that went right down to the wire. I do think, like, the point differential does make a difference.
Yeah, and while I hate it, I tend to agree with you that 10-2 would not be good enough, despite what we might think. And obviously, the whole season has to play out, and there's so much more context for us to make that blanket statement. But I didn't really give you any other information other than this is what BYU has done.
I mean, Utah was 10-2 last season. They were the 4th or 5th team left out, right? And I thought they had a chance to get in.
All right, so let's play this out. What if Utah beats Arkansas in their non-conference, which is their premier game, but does not win a Big 12 championship? They win all their other games. Are they in?
If they're 11-1?
Yeah.
Yes. I think that second loss is the difference. Because last year, it wasn't quite half the field, but there were teams that got in that had 3 losses. Oklahoma and Alabama, I think, both had 3, if I remember correctly. But I know there were teams that got in that had 3. the gap between 1 loss and 3 losses, I don't see how the College Football Playoff Committee, the heat that they would take, and a lot of this is framing, those teams would be into me versus a team with 2 losses and 3 losses. You're splitting hairs there, according to the committee. But 1 loss? Now, if there's multiple teams with just 1 loss on that selection Sunday for the College Football Playoff Committee, I think they're both in.
It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Travis Goff, the athletic director at Kansas, joins us next. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. It's not enough. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studio. Moments away from visiting with Travis Goff, the athletic director for the University of Kansas here, as we spent a lot of time this week talking with administrators across the Big 12. We've had Brian Santiago, Jamie Pollard. Today we had John Cunningham, Travis Goff about to visit with us. And you can find all of those interviews as a part of Big 12 Radio on TuneIn via the TuneIn app, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on Big 12 Studios. Just go to the Big 12 Conference YouTube channel. You can find the interviews there as well. We have Travis? You think so?
Hey, morning, guys. How are we doing?
Hey.
Great. How are you?
Just glad to know I'm last on the list of Big 12 athletic directors. Appreciate that.
You're fourth. What do you mean?
Oh, shoot. Good to hear. Good to chat with you guys.
Yeah, no, appreciate your time. Really excited to visit with you. Let's start with the news from the Kansas City Star and Shreyas Laddha, where you guys are on the verge of hiring a new front office level position. And you described it to Shreyas for his piece as a GM that will work with our top revenue shared programs. Can you just give us a sense here of this and how it's really interesting to see all of college athletics sort of figure out how to organize their front offices, quote unquote?
Yeah, it's still a new element in our space. And I think it's important to have the awareness and humility that if you haven't come from that background, which the vast majority of us haven't, of course, you really want to assess, what could it even look like? What would your place need? How would you, put some staffing and support around it? Where does it sit? Where does it, report to? All those things. So, we took this last year of a lot of learning in the new house settlement environment and the whole notion of player acquisition, player retention. And we said, this is what we want it to look like at Kansas. And, GM's just a phrase that gets kind of loosely, I think, overused. In our case, this role is to be kind of the central hub of front office mentality, a front office approach to how we, mobilize support for our programs, how we allocate resources to programs for roster acquisition and retention. And it's going to report to the AD. It'll sit centrally in the department, and it'll, really be a great asset, we think, for obviously football, men's basketball, down to women's hoops, and then the 4 other programs that have rev share budgets and commercial NIL opportunities.
Travis, walk us through what made Kansas the perfect fit for the Union Jack Classic. Your game against Arizona State on September 19th. Just what led to that opportunity, and what makes it so attractive and beneficial for KU?
Yeah, a game like that, right? First time ever in London at this level of college football. First time ever at Wembley. That was a starting point. I think anytime you get a chance to do something first, it's going to add, I think, a couple extra layers to the opportunity. I think we think it's going to add more exposure. Fox Big Noons start in the morning that day over there live from Wembley. That's a great opportunity to highlight Kansas and certainly Arizona State, Big 12, and international location. That hasn't happened, I think, other than maybe Dublin, certainly over those years. And then it takes the home team wide. Well, we had 7 home games.
All right, we may have to try to reconnect here with Travis. I know Travis said he was going to be in the car today. We got him? Hold on. All right. Yeah, no, we don't have him. We
probably not.
Oh. You there?
You guys got me?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I am in the car, and we're in a part of the state that's going to be a little inconsistent, I'm afraid.
No worries. We'll try to. You've been a steady here for about 5-6 seconds. So let's see if it holds up. You were talking about the Union Jack Classic and the home game situation.
Yeah, again, back to how do we validate giving up a game in Lawrence? 1, we had 7 games. 2, we're still under construction. You guys got me?
Yes.
No dice.
Yeah, you're. We. Let's try it one more time.
Yeah.
So one more crack here, fellas, and let's see if we can have success.
Okay.
Yes.
Apologies about that.
No worries.
So anyway, big other dynamic, guys. Again, being under construction, phase 2 of the booth, down capacity, over 10,000, and so becomes a revenue element of this thing too. That's really important, right? We all are trying to find ways to drive new revenue, increase revenue, and a reduced capacity booth was going to bring us down significantly this fall in revenue, and this gives us a chance to build that back up with a great partnership with Unijack Classic and an opportunity to be the home team over there.
What's the status of the Gateway District and the booth, as it sits today, and what's the timeline?
All is on track. Again, for everything we anticipated to be available this fall is going to be available this fall. Lower level of the new east side, temporary conditions of restrooms and concessions, a new south that will house the band, and a big swath of the students. Everything's on track for as planned this fall. Again, I said reduced capacity, 10,000 plus. And then next fall of 27, the entirety of the stadium will be done. Brand new stadium, and what that consists of, premium of the east side. And then what will be occurring will be continued construction on the Gateway District, which is a new hotel, 2 new residence halls, a plaza that can operate, 250 plus days a year, a new, kind of front-facing team store at that location. And so that will all be still under construction, and the remainder of the district opens up in 2028.
Travis Goff, the KUAD, is with us here on the program to wrap the show. You guys earlier this month just signed a huge multi-year partnership with Ripple, putting their jersey patch on all KU uniforms. Just what went into that partnership and what makes them the perfect fit for KU? I think it's really cool.
Yeah, thanks for that, guys. We're really could not be more excited about it. It's obviously an innovative, progressive space, right? An industry with this, kind of notion of cryptocurrency. Ripple's an established entity out there. It was co-founded by an incredible Jayhawk and Brad Garlinghouse, who's one of our great supporters, of course, and really just a trusted advisor and leader for KU far beyond the athletic space. And so that, certainly adds another component to it, but we're really proud that, they assessed it based on its merits. They had an outside agency partner with a great marketing and advertising internal team at Ripple, and they determined that this thing had potentially, great impact for Ripple in activating XRP more to a consumer, front-facing consumer approach. So we're proud to have those 3 letters on each of our jerseys launching this fall. It'll be across every program. Obviously significant in the new resources it provides the department and some new commercial NIL opportunities. So really excited about that.
Yeah, and that's in conjunction, with the Big 12 deal with Monster. There's been a lot of noise around that, patch and jersey logo. I'm curious if you could shed some light on your perspective on the Monster deal for the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective's pretty simplified, frankly. It's that is inventory we wouldn't have had access to otherwise, right? That's a co-branded Big 12 logo. We wouldn't have had access to that as inventory or as an asset, both on courts, fields, and on jerseys. And so it was going to be untapped. So for us, it's all added value, right? It's additional revenue that otherwise wouldn't, come to fruition. It hasn't, by any stretch of the imagination harmed or negated our conversations with Ripple, XRP. And so, just upside, so we're somebody who's supportive of it. And, it's a new environment across the country. And some of these aspects, more commercialized aspects, are taking time for everybody to be accustomed to. And we understand that as well.
one of the best administrators in the country, Brett Yormark, on Travis Goff. He's one of the best leaders I've been around. He's an aggressive thinker. He's very transparent, which I love, and he's all in, end quote. That's a great quote for Brett Yormark on Travis Goff, who joined us here on Big 12 today. Thanks for your time, Travis. Appreciate you, brother. Rock chalk.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great day.
You too, bud. Safe travels. Travis Goff joining us here. Joined us on short notice, said he was going to be in the car, so obviously dealing with the issues in parts of rural Kansas he's driving through. But great insight there from a guy that is, again, a huge asset and ambassador for this conference.
I see a lot of parallels between him and the commissioner when you think about forward-thinking.
Aggressive, transparent.
The stadium is going to be one of a kind, truly. I mean, just in terms of the hotel attachment and the layout, everything. And then, like the jersey patch, a crypto company that was founded by a KU alum who's had a tremendous success and is well established. It's not a huge risk for Kansas. Like, I think for whatever reason there's a narrative surrounding, it's a crypto company. Like, it doesn't matter. They're established, they're making bank, and it's going to work out well for both parties.
It's Big 12 today. Big 12 Radio presented by Modelo. Thanks to our friends at Rally House for providing these really cool Rally House merch behind us. Check out rallyhouse.com to get your team merch now. Thanks to Anthony Smith, our producer on the video side with Big 12 Studios. Thanks, as always, to T-Chains, Taman Turner, our producer at Big 12 Radio. Thanks to James Wessling. I'm Ari Temkin. This has been Big 12 Today. Join us each and every weekday morning from 7 to 10 a.m. Central. But for now, we're out. Peace.